All systems nominal.
それでは早速全速前進
You wanna know what the weak point of a mech is? The fucking pilot.
Get away from her, you bitch!
His papers say he was a raven.
Protocol 3.
A pattern blue!
Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants, a giant robot power hour discussing mechs across media, their stories, and why we love them. I'm Alice, and I'm joined by Brian.
Sorry, boys. Checkout time was at 11.
And Nico.
I'm here, but only so there will be no bloodshed.
And PMC.
I also joined the Illuminati after my 2021 Polycule was arrested.
And Steven.
Brennan Elliott has starred in almost 24 Hallmark movies, which in my book makes him a better actor than Glenn Powell, Tom Cruise, and Robert Downey Jr. combined. Justice for Brennan Elliott, G-Saviour for life.
You know what? I'll endorse that.
This time around, we're discussing the only Gundam timeline that truly matters, G-Saviour. Let's launch into it. Wait a minute.
What?
Head count's wrong. There's 3 of us. Why did I just say 4 names?
Oh, you're doing a bit. Jesus Christ. I was like, is there a serious problem? Like, did someone die?
Yeah, no, wait. Did anybody die?
I died.
No,
Right.
I was shot 5 times in the back, but someone put their jacket over me, so I'm fine.
We've decided to invite our friends from Giant Robot FM, Steven and PMC, to discuss the greatest Gundam ever made. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I was so glad when you invited us for G-Saviour. It's an
yes.
absolute treat to revisit.
Of all of the Gundams we could have discussed, we decided why not start with the creme de la creme G-Saviour.
I gotta say, I had a lot of flashbacks with this one, because I used to watch a lot of Canadian film when Netflix was still sending out DVDs, because, like, they had a lot of that for some reason. Like, just in the queue, and so this brought back a lot of warm feelings. I'm glad you could join us for this one.
So let's do an overview of G-Saviour. So we got a lot of feedback that, you know, people really wanted us to cover more Gundam because as we heard, there's just not enough podcast about Gundam. And so we needed to get into that space. We need to discuss this franchise. So we started with this one. So this movie was produced in 1999 by Polestar Entertainment in conjunction with Sunrise. This cinema is 93 minutes of pure, unadulterated action. This is part of the Gundam franchise. Legally, this is part of the Universal Century timeline. Nico, do you know what that word means?
I like how there's a little parenthetical, like, explain this to Nico. Do I need to have anything in this film explained to me? I think it was all self-evident. The Universal Century is when everyone went to space in tampons. So, I got it.
What do your tampons look like?
Don't worry about it.
I'm a little worried. So this is legally part of the Universal Century. Technically, timeline-wise, this is the end cap of the Universal Century at 223. So this is the farthest down the line. Most of what happens in the UC, Nico, is between 79 and about 130. So this is a giant jump, about a millennia past anything we really know in Gundam. The regression is real. Technology has been lost. Everything we know is gone. So this is technically part of a 3-parter. So G-Saviour has a radio drama that came out prior to it. That's the part 1 of this. I did not make you listen to that. You're welcome, Nico. I'm talking directly to you. And then this is part 2. Part 3 is the PS2 G-Saviour game. PMC, how do you feel about the PS2 game?
I am the speedrun world record holder for both Any Percent and New Game Plus in G-Saviour, the PS2 game, so I feel pretty good about it. I've also 100% of the game, unlocked all things, including G-Saviour terrain mode, which in order to do, you have to beat the entire game using base G-Saviour. 2 relevant notes. There are a lot of good variations of the suits we see in the film in the PS2 game. So if you like Kunio Okawara designs, you really should check out what the suits look like. The other thing is that the game takes place in UC 224. So the game is the furthest point in the UC timeline.
Oh my god. Well, I'm glad we have someone with such strong bona fides on this podcast for fucking once.
Exactly why I wanted PMC on this one, because I knew this was not only close to their heart, but they were an expert in the G-Saviour verse.
I was going to say, I've heard you glazing the PS2 game soundtrack as well, PMC.
That is really good as well. The guy who composed that soundtrack, I think, is now like a Bandai Namco corporate head. So it's sort of funny. Like, this guy made this like incredible hopping beat and then ascended to corporate heaven afterwards.
That's all you really need to do.
You gotta drop some of that in right now, because that shit rips. So, what did you guys know about G-Saviour before we watched it? Let's start with Brian. What did you know about G-Saviour?
Nothing. The Robot Jocks Giant Robot FM record is the first place I ever heard of it. So, I mean, nothing. I didn't. In fact, I deliberately made my fiance sit down and watch this with me. I had not even read a synopsis. I wanted to go in so blind. And I don't know that I was better for it, but yeah, it was an experience.
So I think this question has to come with another question, obviously, which is, what is your experience with the Gundam franchise? Because we have a lot of different breadth of experience with that. Mm-hmm. And I do think it informs this media. So what was your experience with Gundam before this?
Before this, I'm a Wing Defender till I die, even though I know it has a completely inscrutable plot line. But the Wing and War in the Pocket are like my 2 big Gundam things that I know well and can talk about. Other than that, I'm kind of adrift. I've watched Zeta, and I've tried really hard to watch Double Zeta and gave up.
The whiplash of the Zeta to Double Zeta mood, just, it hits. Nico, what did you know about G-Saviour and the Gundam franchise before this?
I didn't know that this existed at all, and I was just so struck by a time and a place when this was playing. I was like, this is what sci-fi movies think they're doing. It has Stargate SG-1 vibes. Like, but I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea what to expect, and as I was laying out before the recording, my only experience with Gundam is War in the Pocket, Chivo, building some Gunpla. I forgot to mention that before. And now this. So really getting grounded in but I did know enough. I will say I did know enough that when, you first see the mobile suit that isn't the hydrogen suit that he's using underwater, and it's like a Zaku type, I was like, that's a Zaku type, because that's all I know.
I know what a mono eye is.
Yeah,
Good job. You did it. PMC, we kind of touched on it, but what about you? Tell me your torrid history of G-Saviour and the Gundam franchise.
This is also probably a good time to talk about like GRFM, and because we do have a couple listeners that didn't come from the Robot Jocks record.
Like 2.
Oh yeah. Hey, hi. Giant Robot FM, are, as I like to call us, our Oni-chan podcast.
We'll put that on the masthead.
Thank you. So you guys have been doing this for a while. You've been doing a couple of different podcast projects. You've really expanded the mecha sphere. You're doing some great zines. The Macross Plus zine that's coming out, I think we're all pretty excited for. And I think everybody should really go and check you guys out if they want. Where we are more of a schlock kind of
famous.
podcast. We're Tumblr famous. You guys actually, have research notes. You have a good approach to this that I think is really good. But yeah, tell us about GRFM, Gundam, G-Saviour, all of that. Keep it to like a tight 17 minutes.
17 minutes, all right. That could work. So I mean, Steven and I, when it comes to Gundam experience, I know I can speak for Steven at least on this. We're both of the age, and I think we're kind of like Brian here, that we got into it with Wing, right? We were watching Wing when it aired on American TV in spring of 2000, and we both got pretty hooked.
That Toonami afternoon block.
Yep. And, we were playing our PS1 games, our Xenogears. I got an Armored Core at the time. So that was a gateway for us. And then what we watched after that kind of I'm a year older than him. So I watched first Gundam when it aired, but I was checked out of cable TV by the time G Gundam. So I didn't watch G Gundam, Steven did. And things kind of diverged from there. I've since then checked out a bunch of things. In the late, 2010s, 2018, we had gotten together, started podcasting about mecha anime, because I think we started 2019 is when we really started putting out episodes, because then our first project, Mechanations, which isn't available anymore, we podcasted across those 3 years. And then at the beginning of 2022 is when Steven and I decided to start a project with each other to kind of focus on the way that we wanted to go, which was this this research intensive, but also guest intensive. We really, really like getting people, especially people who haven't been on podcasts, but are posters that we feel like have stuff to say. We've gotten as much as we've had people, veteran podcasters, on the shoulders of giants. We've also had a lot of people who just haven't done podcasts before. I think I'm most proud of getting Fees on the microphone talking about Turn A Gundam, who is someone who has written and researched extensively about Turn A Gundam, but hasn't spoken into the microphone about it. And we've given him lots of opportunities to do so. And then G-Saviour flows out of that. G-Saviour, we have a thing for a Patreon where we have one person who's really supporting us financially, and they have they've given us some requests. And their first one, their lead off thing was I'm giving you guys a lot of money, go to G-Saviour. And that could have been a bad thing, but as it turns out, it was actually a great thing. G-Saviour is, I think, and we've already hinted this. I think Nico kind of implied this in a few ways. G-Saviour is a project that is deeply 90s sci-fi TV pilled. It is literally a lot of people who were in sci-fi TV.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's constant Vancouver jump scares throughout the film. If you know anything about Vancouver, there's literally just one time they just give you a straight stock footage aerial shot of Vancouver between two scenes. It's really funny. It's just Vancouver. So that's all super funny. And then, from there I got into the game and played the game and so forth and so on. So, it's basically, we didn't know that we were going to click with it, but because Steven and I both love Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, stuff like that, this film is legitimately something that we enjoy. Steven, you got stuff you want to add to that?
No, my friend, that was pretty comprehensive. If I could promote our G-Saviour coverage a little more closely, we did 4 episodes. We did an excellent history episode with Mark Simmons, who gave us a lot of great insight into the production of G-Saviour. Then we split the discussion into 2 episodes. Do we have a 4th episode, PMC? Now that I'm blanking on it.
I don't.
3?
I thought there were 4.
Well, we did an episode on the PS2 game.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
So we had two history episodes, because I unearthed more history on the PS2 video game than I had expected. But we all had our takes, and that video game is surprisingly good. Listener, you owe it to yourself to watch PMC's speedrun, but like we already mentioned, listen to the soundtrack. It is very good, especially if you're writing or doing something that doesn't, you want some nice chill music. It's good dance tunes.
G-Saviour PS2 game is so if you're a person who says, wow, the Shenmue English dub was one of the greatest things I've ever listened to in my life, the G-Saviour PS2 game is all spoken English dialogue. The only Japanese text in that game is subtitles, but if you can listen to it, you can hear everything that's going on, and all of the actors are people who happen to be living in Japan at the time. And they do varying levels of performance. And I think it's all super, super funny. If you ever hear me saying, The Legend of G-Saviour has just begun, it is because that is the final line spoken in the game.
All you coffee fans.
Yes, there's lots of, if you want to feel weirdly sexual about coffee, I would also recommend playing through the game.
Yeah, watch Twin Peaks and then play the G-Saviour video game.
The coffee cinematic universe.
That's right.
The coffee multimedia franchise.
Really, though?
And then also drink coffee.
Now I have to put you guys on the spot. Favorite Gundam?
It's going to be Turn A. Once we finish with Turn A, it'll be Turn A. It is Turn A now.
Real.
Yeah, it's probably going to end up being turn A. It's kind of hard to see it going otherwise. I mean, beyond that, though, I would say like the first thing I recommend is always War in the Pocket. I don't think anything hits the themes and the tragedy quite like War in the Pocket. It's real good.
Yeah.
Nico, your favorite?
No, I mean, yeah, out of like Jivo and building some gunpla. Let me weigh this up very carefully. No, I was nodding at the War in the Pocket thing because it's just like, it really is just this little bite. And it was, you know, for listeners who know OSG well, we've mentioned a few times that it was our demo episode because it was like the one thing we'd all seen recently. So I have a lot of warm fuzzy feelings about War in the Pocket, but again, like I know next to nothing about Gundam, and I mean, I'm sort of interested, but I'm also sort of not. There's a certain fun to just knowing that references are happening all around you, but being unaware of them. Something that's been spoiled for me by the Metal Gear, because now I understand Metal Gear Solid references, and I wish I didn't. So, you know, I'm kind of good to just staying away from most of Gundam so that I can preserve that feeling now that I've lost it for Metal Gear.
I'm going to do it because I have a chance to ask Giant Robot FM on a recording. Favorite Metal Gear? We just finished up our Metal Gear coverage, and I want to know.
PMC's going to have the same answer as me. I'm holding it up right here.
Two is best. 2 is the best one.
Coming at the other end of this year, I think that I kind of agree at this point. It used to be 4, but I do think it's 2 now.
I really want to reevaluate 4, to be fair.
I listened to all of your Metal Gear Solid coverage while I was driving through the mountains of West Virginia and Maryland a few weeks ago. And I got to tell you, the ups and downs of hearing the personal emotional experience of Metal Gear Solid 4 while literally driving up and down mountains it really matched up quite well.
Oh man, yeah. For thematics, when I hit my like deep culvert of like despair about Kojima and women, you should have just swerved off the road into a holler and just died. Just so you know.
All right, I have no choice but to take my Nissan Versa into the runaway truck lane.
For women.
For women. Well, guys, we've assembled the minds here to discuss something, and while I'm not going to give a Stephen level dissertation on this, I'm going to give you the Alice take on what this media is. So we're going to start with the backstory, because it's kind of important to know how we got to this point of Gundam.
I would love to know.
Right. Koichi Inoue, an employee at Sunrise in charge of some of their very early online posting, one of our original posters, and a veteran of Armored Troops Votons, was infatuated with the use of CGI and how it could be used in mecha media. In 1995, he proposed a plan for a live-action CG version of Gundam. Now, at this time, Japan didn't have the production capability he needed to create this, so he had to shop overseas. He ended up going with Digital Muse, a company co-helmed by a Spielberg alumni, John Gross. The budget? 200 million yen. Or adjusted for inflation and time, a budget of $2.75 million in today's money. They started by making a trailer to help evoke what they were aiming for, and to do this heavy CGI groundwork of making all of the models. The production cost of that trailer alone was 200 million yen. Oh, did I mention this was supposed to be a TV show? Yeah, that changed.
That makes so much sense.
It has Canadian TV energy.
I would love this as another one of those early 2000s bad
like
TV
4
sci-fis.
seasons in probably a bunch of weird guest stars.
Yeah,
can you imagine the New Manhattan arc? Oh my God. If we had more time there with the Statue of Liberty in the middle of Central Park, I don't know what we'd do.
I'm still laughing about that.
You find Jeffrey Combs just waiting for you at the Statue of Liberty.
Yes, exactly.
So they decided to make this a one-shot movie, and this was originally intended for the 20th anniversary of Gundam. The first attempt at this screenplay, written by the writer Stephanie, was immediately rejected as it contained absolutely no mobile suits. Now, while it was being rewritten, production began in Canada. You'll never guess where. While the CGI was being produced in tandem in Santa Monica. So Live action made in Vancouver, CGI in Santa Monica at the same time. After only 3 months of filming, the live action was complete, but the CGI had not yet been fully rendered. There's some things with how the director at the time and all of this, they were not able to actually... A lot of email communication happened behind the scenes for the productions, which is wild to me.
Well,
to
this
be like,
is peak email era.
I know, but a director who can't actually interact in person with his CGI team, wild to me.
But her emails. On
June 18th, 1999, G-Saviour debuted at a charity function in Okinawa with a U.S. screening 5 days later. Only a few select screenings happened through 1999, and it was received very well.
Which is wild. I just want to say this is wild because this is like the second worst thing America's done at Okinawa. So...
That dub is actually lost to existence. There were 2 dubs produced, 2 Japanese dubs, and the first dub, the charity dub, was only made for that purpose.
And it's
oh my
gone.
God, lost media.
Yeah, actual lost media that was never intended to be released publicly.
Oh my God.
Full release of the movie came at the end of 2000 when it was broadcast on Japanese TV, and then it just became a DVD release. A live action and CG show never materialized after this due to poor performance, and G-Saviour would be released in home media not long after. The final cost for this entire thing was 800 million yen, for a total of 1 billion yen total over production between the trailer and the main, or $13.9 million USD in today's money. A real steal for this pure gold.
My God. Again, if you want like actual like true crime level analysis of what happened here, please go look at the Giant Robot FM coverage. But this is plenty of information to hurt me. Like
I think we were robbed because I can see so much of as someone who really loves the 90s Star Trek universe and also Stargate SG-1, I can see the ensemble TV show that this was supposed to be, and I think it would have been kind of cool.
There's some creative overlap there. So Digital Muse, unsurprisingly, did CG for a few Deep Space Nine and Voyager episodes. Mm-hmm. Actually, more than a few. I think like several seasons worth. And John Debney, one of the 2 composers on G-Saviour, also did scored a few episodes of Next Gen and Deep Space, like 2 weeks
He's
ago.
all over the place. He did like Hocus Pocus and shit too.
He's big in the Disney machine.
Yeah.
But still.
Oh, okay.
When is Disney buying out Sunrise? Make it happen.
No, don't do this. Take your hand off the lathe.
What if Sailor Mass was a Disney princess in this essay?
No. I don't even know her, but don't do that.
I have one fun production note which didn't make it into our record because Mark Simmons emailed me later. He was trying to find out desperately who the first screenwriter was, like actually like confirm their identity. Wasn't
Full identity, not their title that they were under.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going through emails right now, and he sent me an email like he has like 3 separate people. He's looking up like old college newspapers to confirm if this person existed. We weren't able to because there's a few Stephanie Sais out there, or Stephanie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Stephanie Pena Sai?
Yes, Pena Sai.
I think so, yeah.
With the hyphen. But we were unable to confirm anything. We could inference that this is the first thing they've written, and since haven't written anything professionally. But still, big void there.
I mean, I'm not a professional writer, but if I was writing for a mecha movie, I might, little note, put a mecha in it. Not to slam this person who wrote this 25 years ago.
I'm not sure this project ever recovered from that in terms of like having the mech be in it and mean something, but I guess we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, starting production without a finished script is a move that you can make.
Well, I mean, as George Lucas proved to us, you just finish writing it in the editing booth. So
it's true.
It's like poetry, it rhymes, you know? It rhymes. Oh, George. I'm going to give a synopsis of this now so we can all get on the same page about what happened in this cinema. It is the year 2023 of the Universal Century. A millennia has passed since anything of note happened in the Earth sphere. The Earth Federation has collapsed, and the space colonies are now independent space settlements. The 2 main factions, the Congress of Settlement Nations, or Consent, and the Settlement Freedom League. Mark Curran, a deep space miner working for hydrogen, finds himself embroiled in the story as he ends up saving a Consent lieutenant named Tim Holloway. After, he is bullied by his former superior in the military, Jack Hale, and helps to save a Gaian saboteur named Cynthia Graves, who is broken into the facility. In his quest to get laid by Cynthia, Mark finds out that Consent is trying to stop an enzyme stolen from the hydrogen facility from getting out, as it would stop a global food shortage that Consent has designed. Meaning, they can't invade Gaia and liberate, using heavy quotes there, their food production facilities. The two go on the run and get to safety of Gaia, pursued by Consent forces. They meet various characters, visit a few settlements, and eventually come face to face with the Consent invasion of Gaia. A big-ass mobile suit battle happens, and the eponymous G-Saviour G-saves the day. And don't worry, Mark gets laid. And with that, let's head to the break.
Hey, Nico here in the break. Just wanted to let you know that while this is a podcast, and we'll always do our best to describe visuals we're commenting on, we'll also include links to the mechs and images we discuss in the show notes, and post actual photos on our show website. Along with that, make sure to check the show notes for content warnings as appropriate to the episode. That's all for now. Back to the show.
So, G-Saviour. Let's get into it. I've kind of broken this down into the major 3 acts, and we can kind of just take it. We're working under the assumption that everybody who listens to this has already watched it, so we don't go play by play. But I'll kind of give like an overview for each section. So our first part, at Hydrogen. Mark, as a deep sea diver, saves a disabled mech and its pilot, and at the same time Consent, led by Mark's former boss, Jack Hale, is seeking to find the MacGuffin, and they come across the Gaian spies, Cynthia Graves and some asshole who just gets shot in the back, trying to save the MacGuffin from the Consent forces. This entire sequence is giving both world building and character building, and then there's a whole gala event and prison break sequence via social engineering. All of this ending with Mark going on the run from Consent with the MacGuffin and the Gaian saboteurs. I think we've got to say it first up. Boy, howdy, the Guppy's pretty great, guys. So our first mech we see, we are underwater in the human face trench.
Yeah, I think it was a deep face trench.
It's deep face, because I was like, the what?
The deep fake trench.
Sounds like an AI generating program.
When you're hanging out
Exactly.
with Daggett and Simmons, you're always going deep face with those two, okay?
Society is currently trapped in the deep face trench.
This entire sequence with the two guys in the control room and their fucking fuzzy dice above the controller is so camp 90s sci-fi. I love it. I can't get over it.
Right away, we are blasted with audio that is ADR'd so poorly. It really blew my mind. The way that the guy eating the candy bar, the audio is so desynced in that like 5 seconds of audio. It's so strange. I was immediately like, oh, this is what we're doing.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Brian, because when we were recording, I had mistaken Simmons's name for Philip. Philippe. I know we have a Philip later on and I like freeze framed it. I listened to it a bunch and it really does sound like Daggett says Philippe. The issue is there are no official subtitles. So I own the DVD.
Yeah.
The Japanese
Such a
audio.
problem.
I know. The Japanese audio is on the DVD. That's it. If you want to watch the Japanese audio, it's just in Japanese with no English subtitles. This is an English language release. Fans have since added added subtitles in, but I couldn't get confirmation on like, is Simmons a last name? Is it like Philip Simmons, Philippe Simmons? So again, one of those G-Saviour mysteries.
Because the script isn't out there.
Yeah.
We don't have access to what was truly written, and yeah, it's very hard to understand at some points.
It's like a Christopher Nolan film.
No. There were definitely moments where I was backtracking to be like, what? Like there's a point in the hangar sequence where I was trying to be like, do they name what these models are? And I rewatched it like 4 times and I'm like, oh, I have no clue what's being said here. So
Yeah.
But as for this sequence, I couldn't help but think of I don't know, have any of y'all watched the 2017 Kristen Stewart vehicle Underwater?
I only just heard about it recently because people were talking about like, and because we've had Alien August for whatever reason, I guess because Romulus came out, people started
Yeah.
talking about it. It looks interesting, but no, I haven't seen it.
I would say it's like a decent, horror movie, but I would say it has one of the scariest depictions of an implosion death I've ever seen, and possibly the only
you've talked about
depiction.
this on the pod before.
Yeah, the group chat is sick of me talking about how the implosion death happens under the underwater pressure, and there's no evidence that water has any factor in any of this sequence other than spilling onto the one guy's helmet at one point, and all I could think about was like, there are weird moments in this movie where it goes hard and you see blood on screen, and then there are other moments where everything is just weightless, and I was just like, I just kept thinking about the implosion death and underwater every time, like, just someone spritz somebody with a spray bottle during the sequence.
Watching this film, I kept thinking about death. Something I liked. I'm okay. Watching this film for like the third or fourth time now, I must emphasize I'm extremely G-Saviour pilled at this point. And the thing that I was really taken with this early sequence and comparing it to later sequences is the like Mark Curran's posture in the cockpit of the Guppy as compared to anybody's posture later in the film is just like night and day. Like, I don't know if it was direction. I don't know if he's actually, reading the script and acting it out, but he's like a blue collar worker, just kind of laying back, no helmet on, no safety. Like, we don't do safety just down cash. Here. Yeah. He's like kind of got like his neck. Like, I was like, is he okay? Like, is he like held back by something? Cause he's just so relaxed in this and sort of,
he had a workplace injury at some point.
He was like just filling into his seat. And and then later, of course, later on, everyone's in helmets and it's much more action focused. But like, it's one of those things where a lot of G-Saviour, the film is, I don't know if I'm giving it too much credit, but a lot of it works for me.
I'm just imagining them doing lockout tag out on the recovered Zaku. Hey, workplace safety.
I'm convinced the Guppy bit was included in this movie because of the overwhelming success of Titanic in both the States and Japan in the late 90s. Because this is basically like the little, James Cameron loves his subs, but like the little Alvin they used to go down to the Titanic wreck. But before the Titanic started eating millionaires and billionaires professionally.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean on Professor Steven here. But the Guppy was designed, the art director behind it went on to work on like Avatar and some other huge stuff as an art director.
Yes.
Which is why I love its design. It stands out so much compared to some of the other units in this as just so unique and cool. But it also does not fit into a Gundam universe in my book, but I love that for it because Gundam needs more weird shit.
I feel like I disagree because I feel like Gundam has so many weird submersibles. All of the submersibles in all of Gundam look fucking freaky. And I feel like this thing looks fucking freaky.
I want to get everybody's read on it. On the Guppy. I've thrown some images in here for you, but what are your thoughts, reads on this? What was it doing to those rocks underwater? Have we figured this out?
So, I mean, it definitely, I think Brian is right. It fits into this tradition of underwater mobile suits. I imagine if you say Gundam underwater mobile suit, the first thing I'm thinking of course, are the Cancer and
Piscean Cancer.
Yeah, Pisces and Cancer from Wing. Yep. But like, more fundamental are probably any of the submersible suits from first Gundam. And they kind of, the Act Guy and Zagak. What's the one there's one of at the Assault on Jaburo? Has the redesign for Journey to Jaburo? Is it Zak?
The
big blue one?
Yeah, the big blue one. Oh, yeah. I should know this.
Wait,
not the Gog.
Capule? The ball?
It's the one with the stupid arms that go out and has a big piercing head.
Yeah. I think there's only one of it in Jaburo, and it gets like murked right away. Char's like, "Whoops, sorry, sucker." Anyway, the point is like all those suits are kind of like weird and bulbous and happen, and like this kind of fits in with there. It's another thing where like we don't know how much this talented person. Obviously, they wanted to do a lot of cool work. I don't know if they watched First Gundam, but like. I feel like they understood the assignment at least.
I'm pro Guppy. It's a scrappy little thing. I like bulbous mechs. I also really like the CG used. The issue here is I'm viewing G-Saviour through the lens of a 35-year-old who has a lot of nostalgia for that era. So the CGI speaks to me on like a intimate level in this film. I really like it. And I feel like I feel like we've lost something in the 20 years since CGI was popularized, or the 25 or 30 years since that has happened. Because CGI back then had a lot more weight. Maybe it was like the awful lighting that was used, but like the toys in Toy Story 1 and 2 look different than they do in 3 and 4. And a part of me really yearns for simpler times. I feel like there's something tactile to that. But this is really just nostalgia speaking.
No, I feel it. One thing I don't think has ever come up organically on the podcast is the amount that Lara Croft Tomb Raider from 2001 was like formative to both my identity and my sexuality. But there is a specific sequence where she's training with a robot in this like fucked up weird interior like mansion danger room where she's practicing tomb raiding.
Is this the Angelina Jolie one?
Yes, this is the Angelina Jolie one. The way that robot moves and the way that it is set up and the way that most CGI happens in that film, and then also the soundtrack, also the perfect combination of this weird 2000s soundtrack with this weird heavy CGI. I feel it exactly. I couldn't have put words to like why I was having nostalgia around some of this CGI, but that's exactly it. It's this period.
I agree. I mean, one thing to note is that Phantom Menace comes out like in the same 6 months that this movie comes out, I think, right? Is that right?
What a year for movies.
What a year for movies.
Peak.
Phantom Menace is like one of the singular going to the movie theater experiences of my childhood. So I'm kind of in that same space. Although, I mean, just because George Lucas had $1 billion to spend, that movie obviously looks a little bit better than this. But Does
it?
I think so. I don't know where we've gone, cough, acolyte, cough, in terms of CGI, but I think I agree. I think a lot of this was particularly late in the film. A lot of the CGI actually ended up working for me a lot. So
the stuff in space looks a lot better. Actually, I'm glad you name dropped the prequels there, because a lot of the prequel CGI, in my opinion, has aged poorly. But if you take like Episode 3, for example, the opening big space battle over Coruscant that takes place in space, that has aged phenomenally and has a great sense of scale and weight that a big tentpole sci-fi film in 2024 would not have, probably.
So I want to talk about one of the elephants in the room, which is this has a great hallmark of sci-fi of the time, which is you reuse things from other productions.
Yep. Okay. Here we go.
Forces all wear Starship Trooper uniforms. That's it.
I think
it's more than
great.
just that.
Yeah, I think these uniforms also get used in the Wing Commander movie that was made around this time. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
They also show up in Firefly, and there's a few other things.
What?
Yeah. I hate to be making a Firefly reference in the year of our Lord 2024, but yes, they do.
I feel like it's kind of the unspoken element of this conversation as well, because if you want to talk about hardcore sci-fi, this type of writing, like this, Firefly is a direct descendant of this type of work.
I thought you were going to go for the other elephant in the room, which is how our boy at the center of the stage. We have yet to talk about the protagonist of this film.
Guys, let's talk about Jack Hale. The Char-ass of 223. Wait, protagonist? Wait, who do you guys think is the protagonist?
The real hallmark of the film.
All right, I'm out, everyone.
I will say the amount, because the director on this, Graham, I forget his last name,
Campbell,
also has done like a huge amount of homework. Like, I kept opening IMDb's for various members of this crew and just finding a slew of holiday films and being like, what happened?
Yep.
Graham Campbell. I forgot the name.
Yeah.
A ton of Degrassi, too.
Oh, God, I forgot.
I think I went through his filmography pretty extensively to see if there was like one thing I watched or knew of, and the only like cross-pollination between me and Campbell was, I think he directed the episode of Degrassi that Kevin Smith as Silent Bob guest starred in, I think.
Yes.
Legends.
That's amazing. What's Degrassi? Anyway.
Not much. What's
let's
Degrassi
talk about
with
Mark
you?
Curran. Guys, I love Mark. I love Mark so much. Every line of dialogue he throws out that's just one of those little one-liners. Like, all I can think about is the main guy from SG-1. You know, in later seasons when he just kind of gave up that it was a sci-fi and was just there to have fun on set, same energies. My man is chewing scenery.
I resent that remark because I think Jack O'Neill is so much better at this than this man is.
Well, okay. Coming to the end. When he kisses Cynthia,
No
and
kiss
then
for
he
you.
goes to the count. No kiss for you.
No kiss for you.
So good.
That's the only good one. For the first like half of this movie, every time this man said something, I was rolling my eyes. Every single time.
He's cutting the rock underwater, which we still don't know what that does, and he calls back and he's just like, this is gonna keep you in candy bars for another month. What is that? What? Okay. All right, bud.
It's a late UC colloquialism.
Yeah.
There are depths of culture here that we haven't plumbed. Like,
Yeah.
we just can't know. Only Stephanie Pena knows.
I couldn't help but think of, because we just did Macross Plus coverage not that long ago, I could not help but think about how Isamu in that movie is such a particular and well-drawn type of asshole, where this guy's like almost trying to be that, but it never lands for me.
He has to have an emotional core of liberalism, which is just like, I could condone the military, but not the military killing anyone. Which is just, it's an incredibly funny thing that's happening with him. But I also think, like, they were having a really hard time because they wanted him to be, like, a cocky, cutting hotshot a little bit. But unfortunately, Jack Hale is sucking the air out of the room in terms of being an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to pull back in a way that made his character kind of weird in that way.
And PMC kind of called this out, but like, and we're talking about these actors. Anybody else that kind of stuck out from the cast from you guys where you're like, oh, I know that person, or
yeah,
oh, I've seen that person.
The bartender in New Manhattan. I have no idea what I know him from, but I saw his face, and like you said, Vancouver jump scares. Like, I'm like, I know him from somewhere. I have no idea where, but the moment I saw his face, I was like, I know you. I've seen you before, and I was haunted. I was on his IMDb for a while trying to figure out where I know him from. I can't find it, but I couldn't stop staring at him for like the 15 seconds he was in the film.
The only one I knew, and I knew right away, was Blue Man Kuma, and we don't have him yet, really. So, but that man is in everything. So,
All right, I have important Gundam acting lore to drop here. Then,
okay,
which is the lead actress, the character of Cynthia Graves, is played by Anuka Okuma, and I know at least Brian here could recognize her voice if I played them back to back, because she is the English dub voice of Lady Un from Gundam Wing.
Oh
no!
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah, I saw she had a lot of voice acting credits.
Yeah. Anuka Okuma did a lot. Like, she's kind of like her and Blue Man Kuma did a lot of like weird Canadian CG voice acting. There's some other programs that they had both been in together. So yeah, that's pretty. Actually, Anuka Okuma, we added her on Twitter, being like, "Hey, you remember when you were in 2 Gundam things?" And she said, "Yeah, cool. Thank you for remembering." So. Shout out to Anuka Okuma.
Cool.
For a time, we were trying to bait Brennan Elliott.
Yeah, Brennan Elliott doesn't talk to us, sadly. But
speaking of Macross Plus, we were also trying to bait Bryan Cranston as well. But I think he checks his account like once every few months.
Yeah, and I don't think he's checking for that.
Real quick aside, since you mentioned Macross Plus, because I recently discovered this, he made his Seinfeld debut in '95, when the same year he was in the recording booth, presumably for Macross Plus, which is kind of wild when you think about it.
He was bringing that Isamu energy.
Exactly.
The other actor.
Oh my god, she was in Shadow Raiders.
Yeah, Shadow Raiders is a good one. Yeah. The other one I like to bring up is the guy playing General Garneau, Kenneth Welsh. He's been in a bunch of things. You know, he also did like stage acting and stuff like that.
I think he's the most well-known.
He's the most well-known, I think, because I instantly recognized him as the vice president from The Day After Tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You remember that movie?
I watched that movie last year. That movie, let me tell you, as a doomer, that movie just gets better every year. I don't know what to tell you.
Nico's gooped by this information.
That's a great segue into this, which is what's G-Saviour about, and what is a lot of media at this time about? Environmental disasters. Let's talk about them. Let's keep it light. So,
well, I think it's interesting how much this movie is focused on famine. Like, we still obviously think about hunger, but when we're thinking about environmental disaster, I think a lot more people think about temperature and flooding than they do about famine anymore. This feels like very 90s, like, like international aid programs, UN food programs. Like that was, I feel like, in the cultural consciousness then more than it is now.
This is also kind of a pretty... It's not like a main focus at any point, really, but it is a common Gundam plot line of, like, this colony needs food. Like, the two colony plot lines are, this colony could be punctured by someone dropping a pen on the ground, and this colony needs a food supply.
Hey, there's a third, which is, maybe we should just drop this colony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think G-Saviour, surprisingly, out of everything in the UC timeline, puts environmentalism at the forefront, even though it might not interact critically with those issues or themes. Like, if you watch First Gundam, it's in the background, but it's never explicitly stated. There's overpopulation issues on Earth. Earth, because of environmental catastrophe, lost a lot of arable land and livable land, so they take all the poor people and they shuttle them off into space colonies. But that's never really, like, tackled or addressed. The show's addressing other things. Here, though, we have like famine, environmentalism, thrown in your face.
Right. A lot of Char's like whole purpose is leave Earth so it can heal. But it's mostly lip service. We never actually see the environmental damage that the Earth is going through. We never see people dying in the streets from starvation. But this one is very upfront about like, this is the main issue currently, is that we don't have enough food for either the settlements or Earth. And why they're looking towards Gaia is because Gaia is a new side. A side is a group of colonies. Nico?
I got that. I was just thinking about how this is a prequel to Soylent Green. Because the whole thing in Soylent Green is that everyone thinks that Soylent Green is coming from like a new breakthrough in ocean development in terms of like underwater farming of like plankton and stuff. And then it turns out it's made of people. So like, if they hadn't retrieved the magical vial, I think they're like 20 years from recycling people on these colonies. And the cinematic moment of all time when you pour one vial into another vial.
I was
True,
not
just
ready
watch
for that.
Reanimator.
Yeah. Glowing vial cinematic universe.
So, Stephen, I did want to call out this particular part you talked about eco-fascism and how a centrist approaches it that we see in President Hawk. Could you kind of expand on that?
Oh, totally. This is something I like. G-Saviour has ideas. Like, in the fandom, I feel like before the film has kind of been reevaluated in recent years, people have joked that this is just a really commercial endeavor. There's no real themes or ideas here. And there are. I just don't think they're really interrogated.
Right.
To their fullest extent possible. But here, and this happens in UC Gundam, famously from the transition from First Gundam Zeta Gundam, you have the governing forces really just becoming full-blown authoritarianism, fascism, or fascist. The film is very upfront with that, with its signifiers. I mean, they're wearing SS uniforms, basically.
Yeah, literally.
And this is the reason why I think this film kind of speaks to our present moment and the future. It's so prescient, is because as climate change continues to ravage Earth, governments, particularly governments of affluent countries, are going to shut down borders, probably, and they're going to monopolize the food sources for a select amount of people, which is essentially what Garneau is doing with the settlements in space.
Yeah.
And even you have our president, too, who just seems more of a centrist president, paying lip service to these ideals, but he really doesn't hold any power. It's the military who does.
Yeah.
I always thought it was very interesting in the UC, in the Universal Century. When you think of designing a space colony, you would think of creating a closed environment that was self-sufficient. But something we always see in the UC universe is that these aren't self-sufficient colonies. They require import and export to survive. And thinking of that as a by design by the Earth Sphere government is both horrifying and very reflective of where we're at.
It's a concept that I really like about the Universal Century, actually, is that they've created these like technological marvels that are purpose-built to be dependent on the system that created them. Of course, again, just like in this, that's never really like shown a light on in a meaningful way, but it's there and I like it.
Yeah, I think there's been an interesting shift in thinking, right? Because, like, the idea of packing all the poor people onto space vessels and sending them away, it's completely reversed now. It's billionaires that are trying to get packed onto spaceships and then leave, because clearly their technology will hold up and be self-sufficient, and then they can leave the ruin of Earth behind with all the poor people on it, which just, I'm excited for the first, like, space arc Ocean Gate incident. I'm really excited for that.
Had one recently.
Yeah.
That's a good pitch for really first Gundam. Real quick sidebar. Whenever I post about space colonization online, PMC can attest to this because he's in the accounts. We get so many drive-bys about the benefits of space colonization, why space colonization is necessary, from like people with brains and like the ability to critically reason, you would think. But we get so much pushback about this idea, or the idea that Gundam is like interrogating these ideas pretty heavily and maybe suggesting that Gerard O'Neill was wrong.
You can't hear the shock on my face at this revelation right now, but that's me in the drive-by. Sorry. I just think space colonies are neat.
Alex is subtweeting Giant Robot FM and then getting on the podcast.
I like the aesthetics of space colonization. I just don't. The human cost to build them is what scares me.
Yeah.
The human cost. Why? Well, why fix what we have? That's a lost cause, right, guys?
We couldn't even build Dubai without significant human cost, so I don't trust us to build a spaceship.
Every time I see the stuff of the giant wall that they're building, I just think of a space colony. I'm just like, this is the human...
Neom?
Yeah.
Neom?
I'm like, oh, so many people are going to die to make this. It's so inefficient. It's so garbage. We could just fix what we have, but no, we're going to build a fucking wall in the middle of the desert. Because capitalism.
Oh, I was actually just going to move us into this party gala in proper, but if we have more on this subject.
I think we're kind of good with that. Just want to give credence to the easiest prison break of all time, and also the prison with the most ventilation fans I've ever seen.
It's moody as shit in there.
It was an interesting set. Also, I love that the prison comes equipped with like a sample containment room and a lab.
But we are a mecha podcast, sadly enough. And this, the party at the congressional headquarters gives us our first real look. I mean, we saw it underwater, but we see the Bugu. The Bugu is our Zaku equivalent. What do we think about the Bugu?
I love the colors. I'm a big fan of muted colors, and Okawara isn't always great with this. If you really want to get like deep in the weeds talking about mechanical designers, Hajime Katoki is like a very prolific mechanical designer. Either you love him or you hate him, but he has very clean designs, and he also often uses very muted colors, so not very bright and in your face. For example, he did the Endless Waltz redesigns, those Gundams, which are far less colorful than their Okawara counterparts. And this is, this generates discourse because people are a fan like a set. But I really like the whatever green is being used here for the Bugo really speaks to me. I also like how science fiction represents designs that are iterated upon over time. The prequels are excellent for this. Even if you really hate all Star Wars, this is like one thing you might appreciate is just how those designs change over time, especially if those designs you could like point to world building elements that, influence those designs, or maybe even ideological reasons why those designs change. I don't think there's any ideological reasons going on here, but it's really fun to see how the Zaku evolved over decades.
Yeah. I think the Zaku is a good litmus test for Gundam, like where you fall on the Zaku and the many different iterations. PMC, how do you feel about this version of the Zaku?
I'm a big fan. I genuinely think that the G-Saviour universe of suits has some of the best skirt boosters in Gundam.
Yes.
I think the Bugu's got really good ones here. The base G-Saviour's got a really good set as well. I just think it really sort of it streamlines the look of the suits in a really, really pleasing way.
Yeah. The booster thing is something I definitely noticed. I also noticed that this movie has like the wiggliest vernier thrusters I've ever seen. Like they are firing all over the place at all times. It's very funny looking.
I'm sort of obsessed with it. But yeah, I thought we would talk about it just because we see a lot of this suit in close-ups during when they're in the escape from the airbase and everything. They almost get steppied on. And I also love this like era of, how do we put people in front of a CGI action sequence? I think they do it really well in this movie for the budget they had, because it's CGI, but they react to it accurately. But we've got to get off Earth. Things are going bad, guys. I think they might want to kill us.
I do want to highlight one thing that's integral to these scenes. We're meeting two very important women. One, we're re-meeting Dr. Cynthia Graves in the prison break sequence, but we're also meeting Mark's girlfriend, Mimi.
Mimi!
And like, she is a character, one, who is going to be integral to the plot, but two, is she is tortured by the plot, I think. In many ways, she has been contorted, and she will be contorted in many ways for this plot. But we first meet her at the gala because she's trying to make a good impression on the president, present herself seriously to other people who are bigwigs. Her job, as we understand it, is in politics.
And also master hacker.
Yeah, well, those are important skill sets in the 90s. And they are congruent skill sets. But she's really interesting because she has, like, mean girlfriend and a rom-com energy while also, like, apparently trying to be a political player. And again, I feel like really more than her as a character, they were interested in her hair being in this film. So
all right, so some important production notes. Caterina Conti, the actress who plays Mimi DeVere, is one of the film's producers.
Okay.
Yeah. And she also has starred in another film with Brennan Elliott.
We got to watch this, PMC.
Which we've been talking about watching this for years. We have not done it. I think it's called like At Hobbs End. It is a horror film in which I think Caterina Conti is the person being stalked by the serial killer played by Brennan Elliott, which is so against his typecast, right? Because he's usually the Hallmark male lead. And then, she's not really been in that much. So we're going to watch it someday. I don't know, but it's out there. I know it exists. And so
I'm obsessed with this.
It's just
this cover alone.
It's just like, what's going on? What is the reality of Caterina Conti's acting career? Because I think it's a part of why this character is like, look, the script is definitely affecting this as well, but it's also her performance because like she's constantly playing with the hair and it feels like she's in several different productions at once. I feel like every time I watch it, I notice new things and it doesn't necessarily help my understanding of the film.
Yeah, I am never sure why she's there, but I'm actually also always kind of glad that she's there because I do think she's kind of my favorite character. I think the film wants so badly for us to be like suspicious of her and find her annoying. Just because I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of somebody in the late 90s, like casting this character in this movie. Her late game heel turn is not surprising. But I think it's weird because I think we are supposed to understand that she is like deeply selfish and self-concerned throughout. But the way that she plays it and the way the script plays it and the way the editing plays it is just that she's often the only one that ever makes any sense and the only one who like has a goal. So it's interesting, right? I don't really know what to do with her. But I do think she has some of the coolest scenes. I love when she jumps through a glass ceiling. She literally breaks the glass ceiling.
Pushes that kid too.
Yeah.
All right, here's the pitch. Drunken watch-along recording of Hobbs End.
The Hobbs End commentary.
That's the bonus episode. Yeah. This is what this mecha podcast needs.
I think, real quick production, I think she was a producer at Polestar. I could not really find who worked at Polestar or like what else Polestar did. So theoretically, she just cast herself. I don't really mean that critically either, but I don't think she ever auditioned for this role.
The Go Back Machine on the Polestar website, they really didn't put much on there about anything.
We were still kind of figuring out what websites we're supposed to do, I think, in this era. So
Space Jam figured it out pretty fucking quick.
They did. As we leave Earth, I want to say this is where I really felt like I wanted a TV show with this weird like ensemble of like shitty dude and his weird girlfriend and the chick he's obviously in love with and the weird chemistry there. And then also there's these two nerds. Like I really wanted episodes of this, I think.
Okay. I want to be very clear. They call them the interns, Franz and Kobe. What are they interning for?
The Illuminati.
Eco-terrorism? What are we doing?
They got a unionize.
It's so hard to get an internship in there.
I really want to know how Franz and Kobe got... Okay, so just... Rewatch it if it was not clear, but all four of them are in the room on Deep Face Trench and the hydrogen plant.
Yeah.
And two of them, get out and climb in, and then Cynthia and the fourth guy who gets murked, they get captured or killed. And so how did those two, Dieter and Kobe, just swam to the surface of the ocean?
I guess
Deep-Base Trench?
this is a question I had, because that whole sequence is so confusing and weirdly filmed. I never really knew what was going on at the beginning when they were doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely cannot get over the fact that none of them are ever talking about the guy who got gunned down.
I know.
Like, he was obviously one of their other interns, and he's just fucking gone.
Yeah,
Maybe he wasn't an intern. He was like the other thesis supervisor. Because this is all I can think, right? So Cynthia Graves is a doctor. And I don't think these are interns. I think these are grad students. Because only grad students could be contorted into, okay, you need to do something that Navy SEALs would normally do. Come with me. If you want to get your thesis published, you need to get in this dive suit. Like, I think that's incredible.
You want your
But I
thesis
have
published.
to think yeah. But no, just like, I think the other guy must have been the other supervising, like, academic. And now they're just, like, too scared to bring it up because, like, where does this leave our education? Do we have to pick a new thesis advisor?
The people who bring up this dead guy are only other people. Philippe brings it up once, and then Blue Man Kuma, Counselor Graves, brings it up once. And, like, that's, like, about it. Like, they don't really talk about him.
So we launched to space using a space catapult, which I will never not love the many ways you can get into
The
space.
curved runway.
Shout out to Blue Gender's space catapults is one of my favorite representations of this, but this one's not a good enough high angle to get out, but they take the Concorde to space.
I like that they have to wear stupid little hats.
So the group escapes with the help of Mark's fiancée, Mimi. She gets them all set up. And then Jack frames Mark for murder. So there's this whole subplot with the general who is Titan leader saying, hey, the government is ineffective. They're all centrist assholes. They don't know what it takes to get done. Gundam shit, right? So now he is officially on the run from consent for the murder of some random soldier. On their escape, they decide to stop at the settlement of New Manhattan, where they meet Mark's other old friend, Philippe San-Simeon, who works for a PMC named Illuminati. They then present Mark with the G-Saviour in a amazing reveal in a theater. But of course, he's a reluctant pilot until they have to navigate some asteroids on the way to Gaia. So this entire sequence is something else. We learn a lot here, and we also meet the G-Saviour. How do y'all feel about the wonderful space colony of New Manhattan?
I want to say one thing right off the bat.
Shit you've ever seen.
The most
in your
90s shit
life.
you've ever seen. 100%. When we were doing the the Robot Jocks recording, we were talking about the bar scene, and one of you two were comparing this scene to quote unquote the party scene from G-Saviour. And I would like to go on record here saying every single place we go is a party in this movie. So I don't know what you were referring to. I suspect it was this, because this is the best party with the best vibes.
I love this bartender. So I think Nico was singing the praises of this bartender already, but I want to emphasize the dynamic of them trying to give this guy the code phrase to talk to Philippe. Yeah. And it's just his name. Like, it's just his name. It's not even really a code phrase.
Margaritas or whatever.
And also, was the implication that he was just going to shoot them if they ordered the martini?
It was not an implication. This man is driving a drinks cart with open sides and clear glass, and then there's just a gun on the bottom, and he keeps reaching for
Listen, he is a gay space vampire. He's allowed to carry a gun wherever he wants.
We are suddenly in Vampire the Masquerade at this point.
The aesthetics are wild here. It really feels like I said, I'm feeling Lara Croft Tomb Raider, because there was such an infatuation, I think, with like being in a historic space, especially like being in a theater or something like this, but also having lights everywhere and playing like 2000s pop and techno. Like, that was the vibe. And this is really powerful.
PMC called out that this was another Vancouver location, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is the Orpheum Theater that they do the reveal in. And also what's great too is that immediately following this is also the shot I talked about before. That's just the stock footage of Vancouver. So if you go to this scene where Philippe is showing Mark the G-Saviour, the transition from this to the next bit is simply a late 90s aerial shot of a street that I did find. It's pretty easy to find. If you're trying to find it on a street view, focus on the art museum in the bottom left corner of the shot, and then the particular roofing on the right side. Those are very distinctive roofs. The museum in particular will show up easy if you're trying to find exactly where this shot is in Vancouver. It's not that hard.
PMC playing GeoGuessr on his own.
I wanted to see if the bike infrastructure had improved, and it has. There are bike lanes on that street now. Thank God.
That's good. Hey, guys, we're saving the environment. G-Saviour did it.
But how's the Gundam infrastructure? Yeah. How did they get it into the theater?
So, Philippe works for a paramilitary organization called Illuminati. I just feel we need to talk about that.
You could have chosen any name.
Do they have... Okay, this might be a stupid question. I don't live far enough north to know how stupid this question is, but, like, do they, like, have the Illuminati in Canada?
I mean, Canadian Illuminati
has their hands in everything.
Yeah, I mean, Illuminati is international, but, like, is there a Canadian Illuminati? Yeah, I mean...
Is this a conspiracy podcast now?
The vibe of this is like when somebody is like looking at, I don't know, like a tourist dictionary and sees a word they like. You know what I mean? Like, and they're just like, oh, we're going to call our organization this now. Now, I have to say this is another example of the audio being mixed so poorly. I had to rewind like 4 times to really, really understand that he did, in fact, say Illuminati.
That could have been a call from the Japanese team, too. Speaking of Metal Gear Solid, Kojima loves pulling, like, English names and phrases and, like, using them as proper nouns.
That's exactly the vibe that it was.
And, like, really sticking with it, too, even if the, like, American localizers are like, actually, this is a little stiff. Let's change it to something else. After MGS1, he's like, no, I have complete control over this.
Yeah.
Which, that was the mistake. That was when it went off the rails.
Well, we talked about it in that episode. He, much like Stephen King, became uneditable, and things followed from there. But yeah, the fucking Illuminati.
Not spelled how you think it's spelled, by the way.
Wait, it's not?
Wait, how do you spell Illuminati?
We can't do this.
Are we in a bit, Alice?
So it's always a bit. That's what you need to know.
No, I'm just terrified of Alice trying to spell anything. Like, I'm really afraid.
I mean, I can barely pronounce words, so...
yeah, okay, yeah. Can you clarify something for me? Anyway, this is an open question. So, there's at one point, Mark has a trauma flashback / he tells Cynthia his backstory, and Philippe is involved. What is... I don't know if it was audio mixing or editing or whatever. How are these people connected? Where did they serve previously? Because I had no idea.
I defer to the expert PMC.
I don't think they fixed it to a specific location. I mean, it seems like the tragic event took place in orbit somewhere as like a part of re-entry or something. That was my interpretation.
It was a re-entry exercise. Yeah. They throw it off.
Yeah, but I didn't know if they were like part of the Earth military or
they were all consent military members together. They served together.
Yeah, you gotta peep that shot of Mark Curran in the consent uniform that they have on the news at the gala, because it looks like that photo of that random celebrity dressed up as a Nazi for Halloween that gets leaked like 10 years later.
It does look like Joji in an SS uniform.
So I want to talk about the design of New Manhattan. Specifically, I think me and Steven are kind of on the same vibe of this. I think of Texas Colony. I think of some of the wonderful, unique designs that you can have in space. Like, if we just go to side 3, the Xeon people were doing some wild shit in those windowless domes. But New Manhattan, let's talk about it, Steven.
I always bring up the Austin Walker quote. I'm talking about stuff like this. Quoting Walker here. Quote, "We could have made them look like anything, but we made them look like us." End quote. And I feel like this also, as Alice pointed out, speaks to the Texas colony from First Gundam. Like, it speaks to such a lack of imagination that they build these, as critical as you want to be, they're these magnificent space colonies, these technical marvels, and they make them look like fucking dirty New York City. And I even have some love for New York City. I say that. PMC is scoffing at me in the distance.
What's okay? I mean, the thing that I really like about it is just sort of what an impossibly silly mashup it is. There's a certain
they put Central Park in space.
And they put the Statue of Liberty in Central Park, right? Like I keep trying to go through the mental exercise of like how could I do that to someone else's like country and landmarks? Like what would I do? Would I put like, you know, the Eiffel Tower right next to Notre Dame or something like that, right? Like I don't know.
You'd put the tar sands in Toronto.
Yeah.
All right, here's the pitch. Everybody pitch your space settlement. Go.
Happy Jersey, PMC, right? New Jersey.
What is that? Just pork rolls and turnpike? Like what is that?
Hey, there's hot dogs too, and like Guidos. Oh, there's a beach. There's obviously a beach, but it's always covered in trash, which is weird because we're in space.
The laboratory of Dr. Weird.
Space Costco, of course. Get the Costco guys in there.
I know.
Oh my God.
We cannot expand the lore.
It's so busy.
People who are not on the GRFM Discord don't know how these two have been obsessed with the Costco guys.
This is Rex's fault, okay? Rex Neighbors the Third. This is all his fault. Don't blame us.
I was trying to think of like what my thing would be. All I can think about is Portland, which is not like a city I know well, but I took my mom there for her birthday. We'd never been. We took the train down. Portland is New Manhattan. Like, you think there's all these cool landmarks and things to do, and you get there, and it is just the bleakest kind of like half gentrified, half falling to pieces city that is mostly just like 3-story, 5/1, like just shopping malls with the occasional piece of graffiti. And like all of the landmarks are in like 4 square feet of each other. Portland is a bleak place, and I think we could just launch it into space intact and create this exact situation.
Wow, that's yeah.
Brian,
We're
what's
gonna
your
get
pitch?
attacked by Portlanders.
I don't know what the details are. I know that I would make it I would make the hull of the colony thicker than 4 millimeters. I would make a colony that you could actually walk around in a mobile suit in without constantly being in fear of depressurizing 10 million people.
That would cost more money, though. Remember, these are all made basically by millionaires. Before I became Tomino Pill, the first time I was watching, or the first or second time I was watching First Gun, I kind of bounced off the idea and didn't really get I didn't really get what they were doing until like years later. Like, yeah, this makes complete sense. They basically making this a TGI Fridays. Of course, this is a billionaire's idea of utopian settlement in space. This is what Trump would do, for example.
Prefab condominiums, but in space.
This is Mar-a-Lago. This is just a big McDonald's in space.
Mm-hmm.
Side 10, Mar-a-Lago.
But speaking of mobile suits moving through colonies, we're starting to get a lot more of the mobile suit moving around, especially the G-Saviour during the asteroid sequence.
Excuse me. I have not given you my pitch. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
It's Cold War.
What are you doing to Kansas City?
It's Cold War Berlin. It has a wall through the middle, and it's always snowing somehow in this colony. That's it. That's the whole pitch. There's Gestapo. I think it would be hilarious.
You mean Stasi? You're not even correct.
Yeah, you would know, wouldn't you?
Oh my God.
Anyway, yeah. Before we get to the G-Saviour, I do want to give credence to this part that I believe this is a Brian note here about biopolitics.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we
this
kind
one?
of touched on this already, where it's just like this took the shape at this point to me of a story, because a lot of the stuff about like the enzyme and the this is a great quote, new bioluminescence just dropped, basically. Before I understood like what that was supposed to fold into, I didn't really know what was going on, but this quickly becomes about food availability in space, and about how like human growth is mediated by statecraft and by hegemony in like a very serious way. I don't think in the end this movie lands in that way, but I liked where we were going at this point, when it became clear like what exactly, who was interested in what and why. Because up to this point, let me tell you, I was so confused. I did not know what the stakes were for anything that had happened. I had just watched her throw the vial on the ground and blind the 2 cops, who just immediately turned their rifles to full auto and shot everything they saw in sight. I was just so confused.
The cops in this are very accurate, you know?
when
They
it
just start blasting.
hey, when it became clear to me what it was trying to do, I started to have a good time here, I will say.
And then I do want to give credence to this, which is your blink if you miss it moment at the end of the general is the bad guy, right? But he is produced by consent. He is part of consent. And there's this idea that, oh, he's just a bad apple. It'll work out. That's it. It's such a weird ending note. Surely the game addresses this, but we're not here to talk about that.
No, the game does not address this.
I've had PMC's playthrough of this game on, just kind of like looking at it every so often. I'm gonna say it does not look like this.
I like the game a lot. The game has less thoughts.
Yeah.
Which is a wild thing to say about this. But we do need to talk on this Mecha podcast about the mech, the named mech. Let's talk about the G-Saviour. Guys, what's everybody's feelings on this design, this mecha?
I have an important note to share. Now, we prefaced the beginning of this podcast by saying that folks here were not subjected to the audio drama that was a part of the G-Saviour saga. If you had listened to that audio drama or read about it, you would have learned a very important detail, which is that in setting, the designer, in the lore, the designer of the G-Saviour was John Saviour.
You mean G-Saviour?
And that was on the shoulders of giants. Thanks for listening.
The Illuminati contacted John Saviour, head of the Saviour team. The G-Saviour was actually not the first Saviour suit to be developed. The leading suit was the F-Saviour, and then they moved on to the G-Saviour afterwards. The PS2 game also introduces the J-Saviour, and in the film, Philippe pilots the I-Saviour.
Yep. Yes, he does.
But yeah,
That was that black Gundam at the end that we don't, that like just gets like 4 seconds of screen
Philippe,
time. Man, that thing was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anaheim Electronics did not go bankrupt for this.
When you said John Saviour, immediately I was like, is that the guy who made Mormonism? Of course it's not. But it has that.
It's John Saviour.
It has that ring to it.
Mormonism.
Oh my God, is that John Saviour's music?
Jesus Christ, that's John Saviour.
Brian and Nico, what are your thoughts on this design, which I'm in love with?
I don't hate it. I think it actually looks pretty cool a lot of the time.
Even on the gantry scene? The amazing CGI gantry scene?
Why is it the only mobile suit that ever launches from a gantry? That's what I want to know. All the other suits that launch from Gaia are just in a room and they kind of hop out into space.
I wish there was more color. Like you were saying earlier, like a lot of the colors in this are a little bit more muted, and I guess that was to make it, I mean, it's something we've seen with like Marvel movies, right? Like you got to mute the color down so that people take these costumed characters seriously. I feel like there was an impulse that was like, if you want people to take the giant robots seriously, they can't have as much detailing or color or any kind of thing like that. But I mean, it just makes it look like they didn't apply textures to it in a lot of scenes. Because it just kind of has almost a uniform, slightly shiny grayness to it. And that doesn't feel like a purposeful choice. It just feels like a lack of budget, when it clearly, looking at the design drawings, is a purposeful choice. So I don't know what to do with it. I think it's okay. I don't think its feet are big enough to be a real Gundam. It needs bigger feet.
Needs big steppers.
Yeah. Those are my thoughts.
I immediately think of the Gundam Alex, which is like my on record least favorite Gundam because I just think it's so boring looking. I think this is close to being that boring looking, but I also think that a lot of the stuff it does, like the beam saber fight at the end, is genuinely really cool to me.
It is really good.
So I like that kind of elevates it in a way.
And I will say, I think Steven made a note about this. I like the way it moves. I think it moves in a really cool way.
I like the design, but I can't dispute any of your points because that's all accurate.
Yeah.
Nico, I like how you pointed out that maybe it was by design. It was designed plainly to like fit the medium. It worked better with the CGI, kind of like bald space marines in a video game, just because it's easier to generate.
Yeah.
That's a smart idea.
Speaking of that, I mentioned this before, and this is a good point for me to paste one in. So in the video game, you start with the basic G-Saviour as appears in the film, and then you get an upgrade to the G-3rd Savior, which is this guy, which is more traditionally Gundam colored. It's got, some blues and reds and yellows.
Oh, look at the feet.
Yeah.
Finally.
He's got
This looks like a Gundam.
Right.
Got the Nikes on.
Yeah, he's got Nikes.
This is why I encourage looking at least the mobile suits of the PS2 game, because like a lot of like if you're like this isn't Gundam enough, like Okawar's got you. He made some variations that are much more from the Gundam region of Gundam.
Yeah, when I was looking up pictures and stuff for this, I just kept finding myself having to catch myself from including PS2 ones because they're much higher clarity and cleaner and look a little better. And I think we have to pay homage to the little bit of jank that this movie has in its CGI compared to the game. But yeah, something I think that is cool about this is, and this is talking very, very into it about Gundam, the regression of mecha design that we see in this, which, I mean, we have, what do you call it? The benefit of
hindsight?
Knowing, that's the word I'm looking for. But the cockpit of this is a UC Century cockpit.
It is. It has the lift up thingy. I kind of popped when like the little display came up like into the that was
little
awesome.
Control panel up in front of him. They're using hand things. But at the same time, uses a blaster rifle. Also has like the F-91 shields for their arms and everything, which is just like, of all the technology we lost, we didn't lose that, which is wild to me. But then overall, like, you see a bunch of the different cockpits in this, and I know it's part of the how they had to do practical sets, but it's such a throwback to early UC that it just does it. Like, you see the degradation of what happened after the Earth sphere kind of collapsed, right? We lost a lot of technology, but at the same time, we're rebuilding in weird ways. And beam sabers are still great. We're never going to get rid of the beam saber.
If you go through the credits of G-Saviour, the cockpit designs get its own credit. I don't know who this is, but David J. Stollery designed the cockpits, so it's on the American side of the production.
And then, the effects around it. The verniers that we talked about the skirts. I love how they all continue the tradition of having the verniers and the spits off the back to help them direct through space. And I think this does a really good job. We can talk about the asteroid scene, which that's a scene that we had to experience.
Yep.
But I think it's a really cool introduction to what this suit can do. And I think Digital Muse did a really good job because this is pure CGI when they're in space. And we have our everybody's in the cockpit watching them trying to dodge asteroids because that's the only way. Remember, when you're in space and you're blockading a colony, it's very easy. It's not space, and there's so many angles. They only left one angle open, which is through this giant shifting asteroid debris field that we have to go through at full speed.
One final detail I want to get in on the basic G-Saviour, and this is, we're talking about technology regression. It's interesting the ways in which it does and doesn't, and to what extent is that because of the medium they're working in. There's an element of the G-Saviour that is very late UC in a way that technology has not regressed, and that is the beam shield. It has a beam shield just like suits in F-91 or Victory Gundam, says guy who can't stop talking about Victory Gundam on podcasts.
You need to move on.
And so I just want you to know that there's a lot of beam shields in Victory Gundam. You could watch Victory Gundam and see more of them. That's all.
Oh, that actually kind of piqued my interest because that was something I found really cool was the beam shields, which I didn't know existed.
That's a very late UC thing. F91. Yeah, you'll see more of those in F91 and Victory Gundam.
I love this. We now have a pattern of whenever we talk to PMC, he just drops another amazing property of media that we should probably cover. And I think going from this to Victory Gundam would be hilarious. So
it's always a good time.
I'm never gonna meet Char Aznable. I'm just not gonna meet him.
You can meet Chronicle Asher, who's just like Char, but not really.
So, congressional forces hot on their tail. They trap Mark in Gaia. He's escaped there, where after being not subtle at all about cheating on his fiancée hacks the defense systems and shoots a consent destroyer ship in a false flag attack. A battle ensues where Gaia's obsolete RGM-196 and Consent's CCMS-03 Bugus, piloted, and their CAMW-13 MS Rise, the unmanned drones, with Jack in a CAMS 13 MSRI, go into a giant space battle to take over Gaia. After Gaia's old mechs and bad pilots get destroyed, Mark sorties in the G-Saviour, and the Illuminati shows up and saves the day. Battle turns in Gaia's favor, with Mark defeating Jack in a dogfight and saving the day. Some other stuff happens, but he gets the girl in the end. How does everybody feel about this entire sequence?
Best sets so far. These sets are awesome. I love them so much.
Gaia really does have DS9 energy.
It has
really
such
does.
DS9 energy.
And I will say, I like the, real quick, I do like the RGM 196s. I like that you can tell they're old.
Obsessed with them.
Yeah,
I'm obsessed with them.
I like that they're like, yeah, we've got mechs. They deploy them, and they're like beater cars. I
like
love
these things too.
PMC, this is the Jalopy Squad.
Yeah, is it my Toyota Corolla Squadron?
Okay, guys, you're putting together a defense force for your hippie colony. How do you divide your squadrons? That's right. Scientist, transportation, engineering, and services. The 4 genders.
I'm definitely in services.
That's my new avatar opening. It's the 4 nations.
This is a question for you, Steven, because you're kind of learned on this. Were those just production guys they got to strap in and be the guy in pilots? They look like such nerds.
That's a reason. That's a reasonable conclusion to come to. I'm not sure. I've thought about emailing, like trying to start up correspondence with Graham Campbell. He's retired now, and I feel like out of anyone in the production, he might be willing to like look back on his career and, you know, swap a few emails about the production to me.
I highly encourage that. But yeah, we're a mecha podcast, but I do want to talk about going native for a second. My man changes into guy in clothing like that, and he is suddenly part of the culture.
This outfit is so whack, though.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
One of Mark's outfits.
I bought my mobile suit pilot outfit from LL Bean, and I wish you would respect that, please.
Yes! And not even like the good part of LLB.
No.
It doesn't even have a simple but understated pattern on
It's
it.
the too expensive part that you shouldn't have looked at.
What if LL Bean went to Hoth for some reason? Like, I don't really know what we're trying to do here with the fur collar and like the... Yeah, it's very strange.
It's all dun colored and just like, I mean, Gaia in general is doing a lot of earth tone stuff, but just like this suit is so awful. And I mean, it's not like he's had stellar fashion throughout. The cravat thing at the gala that was like, he was wearing a waistcoat, but it wasn't tucked into the waistcoat.
Yeah.
Was a statement piece, but like this in particular, he looks just like a big ball of clay with a little fur ruff. I don't know what this is.
I do want to give credence to Mimi's comment about like, oh, can I take a shower, shave my legs? And
What
that like, you
is
fucking
that?
hippies don't shave your legs. Come on.
By the way, we get here at about minute 55 in the movie, and Cynthia Graves has been wearing a wetsuit this entire movie, which is something that I just noticed.
She
and that was
finally
kinda
gets
funny.
to escape it. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Got that cat suit shit on. General thoughts about Gaia, about this culture. I mean, Side 8 is new to the universe. That's a new thing. And Gaia is new to us. How do we all feel about this very late 90s, early 2000s sci-fi culture?
I have a lot of questions about Gaian culture, and I feel like there's the promise of something really interesting here.
Yeah.
So, UC Gundam, Nico, since you haven't been exposed to too much of it, is all about cycles of destruction that keep happening endlessly. History constantly repeating itself, and cycles of oppression continuing. That's kind of like one of the reasons why Tomino originally first like hit his head against the wall, just because I can't really iterate upon this. I've said all I can say with Victory Gundam, let's say. There's something like utopic about how Gaia is presented that I'm interested in, and I want to know more about. I want like to even explore the contradictions that exist in trying to create like a symbiotically attuned space colony in the void of space. And I'm curious what these people actually believe in. And I feel like some of that is represented architecturally, which is one of my favorite like sci-fi tropes when the architecture or the environments represent ideological values. Speaking of Deep Space Nine, one of my favorite moments from the first 2 episodes is when they first get on the space station and they're commenting about how severe and austere the Cardassian architecture is, which of course represents that culture. I can't go a podcast without referencing Andor, but Andor is really, really good with this as well.
Yep.
There's the promise here of something really interesting. They're just really having fun with very basic imagery. PMC was right to call out LL Bean. Very, very like millennial crunchy, if that makes any sense. I feel like
it's an interesting energy, right? Because it reminds me like Counselor Graves is not wearing a dashiki, but he's functionally wearing a dashiki. There's this very 90s interest in like, we need to bring the third world in or like have more ethnic clothing in. And when you're thinking of a utopic society, I think they go to international patterns, international fabrics, organic things, more plants, more rounded shapes, especially in comparison to literally, I mean, by the end of the movie, we've graduated from like, this could plausibly be a weird American military uniform to, oh, these guys are just in the Hugo Boss Nazi outfits at this point. Like that juxtaposition is very pointed, and it does have like racial and ethnic overtones because Gaia has so much more like non-European aesthetics in play. And then of course, consent is all like just it's all just doing either Nazi shit or really severe shit, or literally the Starship Troopers uniforms, right? And I really do think that's so interesting, but I also, it's hard to believe that these people were so desperate to make sure that the food supply, there isn't really a feel of like privation on Gaia that would motivate the kind of maneuver that they did in attacking the hydrogen, or not even attacking, but like infiltrating the hydrogen base to get this and to crack this and to solve hunger. Like there's kind of a weird disconnect in how Gaia is presented to us versus the desperation of the things that the forces associated with Gaia have done.
I agree. So, I do think there's a detail here that may recolor that a little bit, which is just that that operation wasn't really a Gaia operation, right? Which is something that is in conflict between Cynthia and her father.
That was a grad school project.
But the other thing that I think is, I'm glad you brought up the ethnicity thing, because one of the things that struck me a lot is we have Blue Mankuma as like the leader of this colony. And yeah, like his outfit is extremely like, I'm not sure, I'm not learned enough to like put it in a specific place or time, but it has like the vibe of being like
it has like a Pan-African vibe. Like during
vibe
that specific
to it, yeah.
period of time.
And then of course, it's interesting that his slightly utopic like society we're supposed to understand is in some way better than where we just came from, is also like extremely naive, which is another kind of played out thing where they're just like, well, we should just surrender, well, we should just do this, well, we should just assume that they have goodwill, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't play with that stuff enough for me to even really have like a specific thought about it, I don't think. But I think it's interesting that all of these things are on the screen at the same time. And it is funny to me that it kind of gets washed away by Jack's heel turn into like literal mustache twirling cackling at the end here.
Oh my God, his line reads are so good.
He looked at the director and was like, I'm evil now? Got it.
I'm more evil now?
We do need to check in on Vancouver Watch with PMC. PMC, Vancouver Watch update.
Yeah, so they extensively use the Blodell Floral Conservatory from Queen Elizabeth Park in Vancouver throughout all of the Gaian scenes. Both the exterior for just sort of transitional shots, as well as the interior for especially for, of course, the important the sudden overwhelming passion that Mimi also happens to be watching. That shot is very focused there. I might make a gif of that later. But that is, yeah. So we see a lot of that particular conservatory throughout the Gaian scenes, and it's also at the end too for the speech.
And we see that conservatory a lot in other sci-fi made in Vancouver, specifically Battlestar Galactica 2004. This is the resort planet, or the resort ship. This is heavily used for that. Hey guys, let's talk about cheating. Mimi is Mark's fiance. They are betrothed. He has known Cynthia for, checking my notes, a day and a half. What's going on here? What is this?
This is where the plot feels like it should go because all plots go here, and it's just kind of tired to me.
Yeah, I feel like someone got the cliff notes of what mecha is and said, "Oh, well, we need a love triangle.
We need a love triangle. Yeah,
love triangle.
Yeah."
Which, as we've established, a triangle is the strongest shape on this podcast. Wait. Oh, is that not the lesson I was supposed to take here?
No, the triangle is the strongest shape, but whenever anybody says a love triangle, they always mean a love V. There was never any kind of passionate hate romance happening between Cynthia and Mimi. They weren't brave enough.
But what if there was?
They weren't brave enough.
Maybe it's in the novelization.
Yeah.
Did you guys? So I ordered a copy of the novelization just because I needed that in my life. I looked at some scans. Great art, by the way. There's also a one-shot follow-up to G-Saviour that is a very nothing burger, but I love it. But yeah, let's talk about shipping while we're here. Hey guys, what's your ship from G-Saviour? Thanks for asking. It's Mark X Jack for me. Mark is topping.
No, see, I agree with Steven here. The Riz is not there. This is we have Amuro and Char at home. I didn't see it until I saw the note here. But the two scientists and Mark at the beginning are a perfect polycule, and I think that should have been what the movie was about.
Maybe that was the first draft because there are no mobile suits. Maybe there was a lot more workplace comedy.
And it's weird, right?
Romance.
Because they come back for 30 seconds as one of the things that motivates Mark to get into G-Saviour because they're being arrested on the news.
Boyfriend and girlfriend are getting arrested. Do they live in Space Portland and they're polycule?
Yeah, I guess. I would believe that the hydrogen facility is just outside Portland. But I felt like they were if we have a man and a woman working closely in the plot, clearly this has to be, and they couldn't figure out how to get me. This would have frequently we surrender to the impulse to script doctor, and so I'm just gonna say it here. This would have been a stronger movie if Mimi had just been there hadn't been a romance element between Cynthia and Mark, and Mimi had just been I've been presented with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to just arrive on Gaia in total trust. This is a moment to move my career forward. I think that would have been a much stronger statement about, her motivations than what we get, which is, I saw you kiss another woman, and I'm gonna fling my hair around this hotel room as much as possible while I shoot guns at consent ships. It's so frustrating to have both female characters reduced to this kind of plot.
I agree. It's so baffling to me that she's presented as so politically savvy, and yet she causes an international incident over a man this. It makes so little sense to me.
Exactly. That's why I'm I wish this had been related to her wanting to advance her political career. She knows the general wants an excuse to attack Gaia,
and it seems to want to split the difference there because she does kind of also want that. But I don't know.
Yeah. So we have a space battle. It's Gundam. We're gonna have a giant
real
space
quick, we have to talk about the fact that Mark tries to lock Mimi in a hotel room and she busts out through a light fixture, and it's the coolest single shot in this movie.
I love
it's really good.
I love the gif of Mark slamming the door lock, and it's just sort of just shattering and falling apart, and the door slams closed. That's so good. It's just perfect.
It's really good. The whole thing is
I like to imagine they didn't plan it, and it was just they didn't think the set would have that done to it, and they're just keep it in. We can't rebuild it.
Yeah, it's Bryan Cranston throwing the pizza on the roof and it getting on the roof the first time.
Oh, I do want to shout out another thing just that happens right before this, which is another coolest shot in the movie just in terms of camera work, where Jack and the General are talking to each other across frosted panes of glass.
Yeah, that actually had some
so
juice.
Cool. Yeah, that had some serious riz. But of course, what they're saying is fire the lasers and shit. But the filming is good.
So we have the most fashion invasion ever. I do love this little shock trooper assault ship where all of the soldiers are just standing behind them while the General and Jack are strapped in, which is What are we doing?
They're doing their part, okay?
I'm doing my part.
It's like when you're on the bus and you want to be like, I'm a native, I'm really good at taking public transit, so you like immobilize your body so you don't move when it breaks for stops. That's what they're all doing.
It really makes it seem like a toy, because it just seems like it's like a carrier for all your action figures, and so like you just prop all of the action figures against the wall. There's a bit I can't unthink now where I've been watching Star Wars Rebels, and they like to use like toys, like to take old toys and actually put them in play in the Star Wars setting. And so several times they've taken things that were meant as like action figure carriers and then use them literally when they don't make sense as like things to exist in a fictional setting. Like, why are your prisoners like mounted to metal straps on the exterior of the prison van? That doesn't make any sense. And it feels like this ship is kind of like the way the soldiers are positioned inside is just like, yeah, you would just pin them all like with Velcro or something to the side. That's just what you do.
These like transport carriers all look the same, and they look like they belong in Star Wars. I don't really know what they're doing here. They look very strange to me.
Yeah, they don't evoke any Gundam. There's no Murasai. There's no Salamis class. These are just sci-fi CGI carriers.
Yeah, they're very generic, like American sci-fi. Kind of feels like a dropship from Halo or something. And I like some of those designs, but still.
But yeah, very much like, did anybody in this design studio ever watch a Gundam ever? Survey says probably not. So it wouldn't be Gundam if we didn't have unmanned mobile suits. Let's talk about the cams. So deployed here, and we see them earlier in the show where they're like, I didn't think they had developed these back on Earth. We have the MS Rai, the mobile weapon Rai, and the CM Rai. What do we got? What do you guys think about these little dudes with their little palisades?
I like their palisades.
I was gonna say the action here was so wild. I didn't even know that these were unmanned.
I didn't either, actually, until we were talking about it just now. I have to say, I think that Jax looks so stupid. I think it's one of the worst looking things I've ever seen. But other than that, I actually think a lot of this stuff is so cool. I really think it's so funny and interesting how, like, sometimes you expect these movies to go one way where it's like, yeah, let's put all these nerds in mobile suits and maybe they'll kind of save the day. A lot of these guys just suck. And I think that's interesting. And I think it's kind of fun to watch them be bad at piloting. It's scary when the one intern is like blinded briefly and like can't control his mobile suit and like just kind of has to block a bunch of stuff and doesn't really have any bearing on the actual situation. That actually felt like real combat in a way.
Nico, what are your thoughts? You know a lot about Gundam.
Yeah, I'm the sitting expert, obviously. No, it did remind me of when we were watching, oh God, what the hell was it? It was Gunbuster, the first battle that they're in is like cadets and where Smith gets killed.
Oh, yeah.
R.I.P. Smith. But like that real feeling of like, I'm in combat for real for the first time and so much is happening so quickly and all of it is potentially deadly and I can't get a lock and I can't really see what I'm supposed to be looking for. It conveyed that same sense of like fear in a good way.
That's a great pull.
Which was like surprising. Like I said, there are moments in this movie that kind of hit, which makes the other moments where it's just kind of a romp. Like it's weird and it's ups and downs.
So strange.
Yeah, but I did like the freneticness of the action, and there was a real feeling like it wasn't the same as like when you see an X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. It's not the same as when you see an X-Wing versus TIE Fighter fight, and they both have really different sound design, really different colors, really different. These units, like, fighting kind of blended together for me, though I did, of course, like the beat-up Jalopy Squad. There wasn't as much visual and auditory difference for me in this combat, but, you know, it was a good set piece.
I do want to call out the boost pack, because I love in Mecha, and especially in Gundam, when you slap on something where the legs should go, because we're in space, we don't need fucking feet to just jet around. My favorite mech is the one from '83, the Dinadrumbium.
Oh, yeah.
that big ass thing, the Stamen and the Dinadrumbian.
Yep.
But
that's
I love that. I love the Zeong from the original one where they're like, oh, it's not finished. It doesn't have legs. And it's like, well, it doesn't really need legs. We're in space right now. So I love that. But what about you, PMC? How do you feel about the Masrai?
I like these guys a lot. I think the putting the mono eye in that kind of helmet, as like calling to sort of vaguely like Roman centurion helmet kind of design with your fascist mobile suit, like that's just spot on. That's just doing the work. That's very very effective communication.
Good visual design. They really know what they're about. It does just look like a Cylon, but in the same way that a Centurion is a Cylon. How do you feel about just the general, like, the suite of weapons, how they act? Like, you've seen a lot of autonomous mobile suits and how they work. I always go back to Gundam Wing and the autonomous suits there, just like sitting in space and slightly moving. And then these guys are fully just out there with human movements, it feels like.
Yeah, the autonomous mobile suit thing is fun. In fact, they're so sort of just ordinarily human. I will mention that if G-Saviour PS2 does have thoughts, it is on this subject. That is probably the most important plot thread of the game, further development of unmanned mobile suits. And so, and how human they are remains an issue that I don't know if I can quite separate out for this. Yeah, because it's a pretty big one. But there's thoughts on how they, how they incorporate people into unmanned mobile suits.
What about you, Steven? How do you feel about the Masrai?
I might be the contrarian here. I like this. I think the signifiers are on point. I agree with you. Just aesthetically, it really doesn't speak to me. It's too busy. I tend to jive with simpler designs. I do like the rocket launcher thing in the back, deploying little missiles. That's cool. It feels very 90s edgelord. It feels like something that
totally
a toy company would try to sell me, which has like a really grim, dark TV show attached to it. I can't really cite any examples, but television was filled with them when I was growing up in the 90s.
This just looks like a generic villain mob character in that way of just like there's so many little pokey bits and just and the colors, like the Bagu, it's muted, it has a color palette to it though, and these are just stock one color. Here's the green one, good luck. So we have this big fight, things are going okay, we'll get to the big showdown, but how do we turn the tides of this fight? We've got the RGMs getting blown out of the sky because they're old units, and these mobile armors are just destroying them. So, oh no, a bigger military has shown up. Guys, we're gonna get saved by the Illuminati, piloting I-Saviors.
When they said this, not just like, whoa, an advanced strike force has come to back them up. I don't know that we can continue in this engagement without major losses, but an army twice the size of...
An army twice the size, calling themselves the Illuminati. That's what they say in the control room. It's such a sentence.
I do like the Illuminati has their IFF signals on so people know who they're at, which is, if you're the Illuminati, you want people to know who you are.
Yeah, and IFF signals, of course, are a major issue if you're in a shuttle launched from Gaia with the MacGuffin on board, or you think you have the MacGuffin on board, and you don't bother to switch anything over so you get fucking own gold by your own guys. Anyway, just wanted to make sure we didn't miss that.
I have a question, actually, like a Gundam lore question, and I was suspecting by the time I dropped off of Double Zeta that this was happening anyway, but did Minovsky particles just stop mattering? Or
no, they just don't matter in G-Saviour.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Correct me if I'm wrong, PMC and Stephen, but they exist in other pieces of Gundam media.
I mean, they're certainly still present through Victory. I mean, the reason they don't talk about them out loud in G-Saviour is the same reason they don't say Gundam out loud in G-Saviour, is because they're trying to avoid proper nouns. Yeah, they don't say Gundam. Yeah. But like, they're still doing Gundam scale battles, right? Like, they're not resorting to shooting long range missiles, which is the thing that Minovsky particles is supposed to, obstruct. So like, I imagine they're still there, just like the G-Saviors are Gundams. It's just that no one's going to say it out loud.
Yeah.
We don't want to scare off people. This isn't the TV show version where we have time to explore an episode on Minovsky particle scattering. But yeah, the I-Savior, so many fans.
They do say mobile suit, though.
They do say mobile suit.
Mobile Alabama suit. Yeah, the I-Savior. I hate this design. That's it.
It's fucking awful. what is up with the hips? What is happening?
Wide childbearing hips on this suit.
But Hank Hill ass thighs and legs.
Dancer legs. And then so many fans on the back. We got fans on fans. There is more metal on the back of this than in the rest of the suit combined.
This thing is so whack. I want to stop looking at it.
I want to stop looking at it. What do you guys think about it?
Just like the real life Illuminati, it has a lot of fans.
Not a conspiracy podcast.
We could just
We're
end the pod. We're good.
I don't like the G-Saviour so much. I'm not going to talk about it. Instead, I'm going to direct you to the G-Saviour from the PS2 game, which might be my favorite G-Saviour design. It rules.
It's Pat Labor.
This is Pat Labor.
No, it's piloted by the dashing G-Saviour Squadron, which is the only way they refer to them in that game.
Wait, is this one pink? This is fun.
Wait, are we
I want
looking
to
at
see
this?
where you're seeing pink on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not looking at the same one because I was like,
I
is
posted
it
one in chat.
Yeah.
I was like, hello?
I do like it, actually. It is Pat Labor, but I do like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I like the hand-drawn Okawara sketch better than I do how it looks in the PS2 game. That looks fine in the PS2 game, too.
I kind of like both. But yeah, the hand-drawn one is just chef's kiss. But we're not here to talk about good things. We're here to talk about G-Saviour. Anyway, we have a fight. And where do we have our fight with our sudden vaudeville villain, Jack, who is throwing out lines like he is fucking challenging this man to a duel? Where do we have that fight, Nico?
I thought it was on the 4mm surface of the side. Like, it looked like it was.
Wrong! It's
Okay.
on the solar panels!
Oh, great. Even more catastrophic, damn it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, it's giving Mass Effect 1 fighting the Reaper on the Citadel energy. Which I guess, because of the timeline, the Mass Effect fighting the Reaper on the Citadel is giving G-Saviour energy.
That's right. Highly influential work, G-Saviour. I was gonna say, I really enjoy like solar panels and or mirrors as like a place for fighting. I apologize in advance for invoking yet more cursed works in this podcast. It reminds me a lot of the adaptation of this. Okay, so first Gundam, they escape from Side 7. We're all familiar with that, and you blow a hole in the side of it and get out in White Base.
We're all
familiar with that. We've established that,
Nico
but everyone
included.
here has watched that. In Gundam 0079, The War for Earth, the FMV adventure game from the late 90s, the way they do it is that actually you end up in the Gundam on the mirror on when you're one of the Side 7 colonies, and you have like an input FMV game input sequence with Char, and then you have to like jump up to the open hangar on the White Base, and that's how you escape. So it reminds me, hi, I'm PMC Trilogy, and I'm telling you that this cool action sequence from the end of G-Saviour reminds me of Gundam 0079, The War for Earth, and I have now activated the like bad senses of every bad Gundam YouTuber. I apologize.
Oh, no.
Alice is
We're
destroyed.
canceled. It's over. Of all of the things to reference, because I was like trying to pull, I'm like, yeah, they've done some cool things with the mirrors before, and for the fucking FMV game, that I'm not gonna say it. I don't want to get the Gundam heads posting at me.
Are we going to cover that next?
No, we are not.
Why not?
Oh, so you do have lines.
It's not that bad.
We're doing Gundam Engage next. God damn it!
No, you don't think that game is how Nico should meet Char Aznable?
Oh, that game is how. No, you did it. You figured it out. You cracked the code.
Get the laser dicks, boys. We're
You can
going.
meet Char Chinsnable. the red chin.
Oh, my God.
I think you're a broken person, PMC. I just thought I should tell you that to your face. This is the entire render budget of the film. This fight on this glass.
It's cool.
I think it's fucking cool as hell.
It's pretty cool. Shout out
Yeah.
to the cameo from the anti-personnel guns that are on the Gundam's face that never get used almost ever, but are in this.
Yeah.
I love those things.
So we have this fight. Any shout outs, any thoughts before we wrap up the weird ending of this
With this
movie.
fight, I really appreciate, we talk about a lot with CG sequences, the extent to which they feel weighty or they don't feel weighty. And I think on Earth, the weight is harder to convey for the CG used in this film. But what I like about the CG action in space is that whenever especially the G-Saviour in particular, whenever it's swinging its body around, swinging its torso, swinging its hips, swinging its arms, it really feels like it's swinging, and it jerks the whole thing around. Like those rear fins really do move around a lot as it's swinging. And especially too, as it does that final sequence where it jettisons the armor on its arm to surprise Jack and get that killer blow in. That's great. I also really like the way the beam saber cuts mobile suits. I think that the way they're charred and broken and cut through is really, really fun. I just really like the way that this whole bit looks.
Solid agree.
Also agree. I don't know if I have anything substantive to add, but it's very cool to look at.
Hey, cool robot. So, defeats Jack, the general and Mimi get murked.
I do want to point out, they had to do it to us. They had to do the villain is more than willing. This is literally just Alexander and fucking Achilles again. The villain is willing to kill you, but if you want to be a real hero, you got to crash and burn with the guy. Though I do appreciate that he's like, I'm going to have a lot more fun than killing you, watching you like sit a court-martial, as if this guy literally doesn't have connections and like it'll be a sham.
This is where it started to lose me, right? Because it's like, how are you Mark Curran and you still believe that this man will face justice in the system that produced him? I will never understand.
And at the end of the film, Mark wants to go back to Earth to like get proved innocent in court. Like he thinks that's going to work out, which is also wild.
Insanity.
This man is going directly to Guantanamo Bay. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Consent investigated its own actions and found no wrongdoing. So
the new Guantanamo Bay is actually the old hydrogen base anyway. So
literally. Oh my god. Yeah, no, this confrontation sucked. It was a bad ending to the movie. I love the beam saber fight, and then for it to end in the no, I'm better than you kind of shit again. I'm like, just kill him. Come on. He clearly wants
killed,
you to.
50 people that were just trying to defend their homeland. But so we have this we get this throwaway transformation sequence of the G-Saviour going to Terra mode, which is when you want to go to the ground, and that includes putting things on your legs. I think that's all that happens.
I missed this completely.
I mean, to be fair, that's what happens when I go Terra mode. Like, when I'm going to go outside, I put shoes on.
Oh, wow. Rough.
I'm very sorry for that.
The wrap-up scene, I'm going to go face justice back on Earth. Let's date. Okay, cool.
I'm glad Brian brought up the original ending of Metal Gear Solid 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is that, though, isn't it?
He talked his new girlfriend into going to get, like, black-bagged.
Wait, is she going to go with him? Is that how that concludes?
Yeah, that's the end. He's like,
missed
come
that.
with me.
Straight to secret prison. Never seen again.
Yeah. Yo, no.
It's awful.
Hey, quick shout out to actually the best mech, which is the fake cigar that is perfectly shaped and sized to hold the test tube. I love that thing.
It is a mech.
It is a mech.
It's piloted by a tube. Hey guys, I'm going to ask a question. What was this a speech or reference to?
I don't know. It was giving big United Nations, though. Like the flags and everything.
He says, I'm going to borrow some words. Do you know who he borrowed those from?
Was it like the Declaration of Independence?
Was it Thomas Jefferson? Yeah.
It was the Declaration of Independence. USA! USA!
I heard the word inalienable, and I thought that was a very specific word choice, but I didn't really pick up that it was a whole quote. This speech is nothing. He's basically like, freedom and liberty are good, and we are all good for having them, and thanks, Mark Curran.
Yeah, cue Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we've had a lot of fun. We've gone to New Manhattan. We've gone to Gaia. We've kissed a girl while having a fiance. We've been a better person than our enemy. But there is something we have to do on this podcast. We got to rate those goddamn mechs. Let's start with Brian. Brian, rate the goddamn mechs in G-Saviour.
Okay, look.
You took off your glasses and rubbed your eyes as if you're the most exhausted person in the world.
I did my absolute best to meet this halfway. I never have ever really been someone who likes the look of a CG mech. I think that this does a shockingly good job with the tools it's given. However, it's so not about these, and they're so... I didn't know the names of any of them. I wasn't hooting and hollering for any of them. G-Saviour looks okay, but the like modality of how this film works and how it deploys the mechs and how it actually doesn't really center on warfare until the last 15 minutes. It was like, in the end, it was a huge whiff for me. I think this is a 1 out of 10.
Whoa.
This is my lowest rating yet.
I was about to say, you've never dropped a 1. Nico, what about you?
I can't be convinced to have that hate in my heart, especially after PMC and Steven made great points about the 90s-ness of it all. The 90s CGI. That sent me down a spot. I posted an image. I didn't realize its name is Simon, which of course is an acronym, but the training robot from Lara Croft is named Simon, and it has the bulbous body and the multi-arms and the classic, like, weighty CGI feel of the 90s and 2000s. And I do have love in my heart for that. I do have a lot of affection in my heart for that. I really like the Guppy. And I really like the beat up old mechs that Gaia deploys, even though they get fucked up immediately and annihilated. I don't think it was as bad as Chiva, which is my depressing benchmark. So I'm actually going to give this one a 6.
Great. So PMC and Steven, this is your first time here, so I kind of want to explain how this works. We don't rate the media, we are rating the mechs. So when you think about what you're going to score this on a scale of 1 to 10, you have to think about the mechs themselves. Now, that includes the energy, the pilots, the feeling that goes into them, but also just the mechs as a whole. So think about that and kind of give your little pitch and give a score. And we'll start with PMC because we go alphabetically.
So I would say that the mechs in this are very, like, they're not remarked upon as being special, right? Like the G-Saviour is not necessarily the Federation's new mobile suit for the first time in warfare in response to the Zaku or anything like that. They're very much just the ordinary part of the setting, both in terms of labor, like the Guppy in the Hydrogen rig, and then also later on the warfare. Like, oh yeah, Gaia has old mobile suits sitting around. So they're all very well worn, even when they're the newest secret models, such as the G-Saviour and the I-Saviour or the Rice. So I'm very happy with their energy. I do think that there could be like a little more color. I think I like the old beat up mobile suits from Gaia. I wish they were a little more fun in terms of how they get deployed and also how they get destroyed. I think that's underwhelming for me. But like, nevertheless, I like the way the G-Saviour moves. I like a lot of the villain mobile suits. I like the Guppy. So this is like a pretty solid ass, like 7 out of 10. Like, there are definitely things I could stand to have improved. And I also know that, my mind is, as evident in this podcast, is constantly poisoned by the experience of playing the PS2 game, which has much brighter colors than this film. So I think it's like a pretty solid 7 out of 10 kind of mecha experience.
Yeah, PMC and I are going to share the same score because I was going to give this a gentleman's 7. Despite how positive I was on the designs, none of them are really iconic. Like PMC said, they have a very workaday feel, which I appreciate. A lot of my positiveness comes from that lens of nostalgia. I really do like the verniers on the G-Saviour. They have the blue they emit is very comforting. It looks like the comforting output of a warp core or something. So I feel like enveloped in the embrace of some of these CG mechs. I don't think about them idly, compared maybe with some of my favorite suits. I'm a big fan of grunt suits like the Leo from Gundam Wing, and I don't know if any of these designs are as iconic as those are, but there's a real, like PMC said, lived-in quality that I liked.
All right, Alice?
I love a GM. That's gonna skew this so fucking much for me because I love a GM more than anything in my life. I think the suits are cool. I think they all have a unique design. I think the Guppy is a real standout here with the RGM. I love a good Zaku variant. I think overall, this is what I would call solid. This is nothing new, nothing crazy. I wasn't like hooting and hollering. Do I want Bandai to run kits for this? 100% I do. Do I think that's ever going to happen? 100% not. But for me, this is going to come in at a solid 6 out of 10.
All right.
And with that, let's head to the break. Hey guys, Alice here. Thanks for listening to On the Shoulders of Giants. We're really happy you're here, but if you know anybody who might be interested, we'd love if you share our work with them. If you are enjoying what we're doing, maybe send us a message, or what would really help us out is if you leave a review online. Really, a lot of the algorithms will push people down if they don't have reviews, so it really helps if you just go and write something on the internet. Heck, we might even read one on the podcast if it's really nice and makes our hearts go doki doki. So if you could do that, maybe do it, and thanks again for listening. Now, back to the show. Welcome back from the break. Wow, that was refreshing. So, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to our podcast, but we do a little something after the break where we play a game. So for this game, we're just going to have PMC load up the G-Saviour PS2 game, and we're just going to watch for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, what is the speed run?
You're
time,
joking
PMC?
about that, but I already had a clip ready to show you from the G-Saviour PS2 game.
We'll do this after the game because that's great. So we're going to play a game. This game is G-Saviour Me from This Hell. So G-Saviour is most well known for being the live-action Gundam. But it's also known for being the first CG Gundam series. CGI has been used in other Gundams since then, but this is the one. CGI is a, to put it lightly, controversial topic in the anime discussion space. Like any art medium, the way it's used and how it's presented can make something amazing or something that's a piece of shit. Now, we can all agree that G-Saviour falls into the former category, a masterpiece even by today's CGI standards, but not everyone feels that way. No matter how much you might like something, there's always a poster on the internet ready to tell you that you're wrong and a piece of shit for it. I have scoured the internet for reviews, but not just for G-Saviour. I've also grabbed reviews for some of the worst rated CGI anime ever made. These anime are so bad, even I struggled to watch them. I mean, I still watched them, but it was hard, okay? I'm a completionist, but it was hard. This game is going to be pretty simple. I am going to read a portion of a review that I pulled from the internet. Reddit, IMDb, Amazon reviews, some WordPress reviews, because this was from a wonderful time of the internet.
The blogosphere.
And you guys are going to tell me what's that for. Ceiling is, of course, on the table. Now, unfortunately, we are in the Universal Podcast century, and it's been about a millennium. Both Giant Robot and Giant Robot FM and On the Shoulders of Giants have dissolved, and we've had to reform into new power cycles. So I'm splitting you all up. That's right. Steven, you have joined the consent forces with Brian, and Nico, you have joined the free settlements with PMC.
Wow.
You'll be working as teams for this.
Awesome.
Your scores are shared. You will have to come to answers together, and you will be in this together. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. You have 4 choices for what each of these reviews are for. They're either going to be from G-Saviour, currently rated 4.2 on IMDb, the anime Handshakers, currently rated 3.2 on IMDb, X-Arm, often considered the worst anime ever made, and currently rated 1.7 on IMDb, and Berserk, the 2016 CGI version, which is actually rated a high 6.7 on IMDb. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Easy enough? I'm just going to post the names just so you guys can remember who you have to choose from. So we did a coin flip before this to decide who would go first, and it is going to be Brian and Steven. Have you come up with a name for your team yet? You didn't know you had to, but you have to.
Brian, we're both Star Wars sickos, right? We can come up with something.
Yeah.
Sickos!
I've been reading the Wraith Squadron books actually recently. They're so good, by the way. Huge
I have
recommend.
heard that.
Yeah.
Wraith Squadron it is. All right, what about you, Nico and PMC? What's your little conglomerate?
I feel like we should just be the something saviors, you know? Like we just gotta lean into it.
Yeah, what's your favorite letter?
I think P-Savior would be really funny, but I don't know if that's too it's too caustic for you.
I'm down for that. We could be the P-Saviors.
The Go Piss Saviors.
Go piss saviors. Sidebar before we get into this game. Nico, what does the G in G-Savior stand for?
Good.
Brian, what do you think it stands for?
Gundam?
PMC or Steven, I bet one of you knows the actual answer.
I think I did at one point. PMC?
Yeah, I don't think I legitimately would have said Gundam because I don't think I remember if it stands for something else.
So I was reading into this, and the article specifically cited the director was on a cross-Atlantic flight sitting next to a nun and explaining to her G-Saviour. And she asked him, does it stand for God Savior? And he said, no. It stands for Gaia Savior.
Oh my God.
Earth Savior.
It's right there. Yeah. It's right there in the movie.
So, okay. So is the I Savior the Illuminati Savior? I got many questions now.
I mean, you're the piss savior. I don't know. So.
I do love streaming.
All right.
We can't make this podcast about piss. We can't make another episode about
if
piss.
Kojima can do it, I don't see. I'm at least as qualified as he is.
Oh my God.
All
what
right,
bodily
let's play
function.
this damn game.
Yeah, let's play this damn game. The first review. The fights are okay, and large use of CGI at first feels jarring. But just like the art style, it quickly grows on you. There really isn't much going for this. The atmospheric tone of the setting is very colorful and a pretty yet odd style of art. The music does an alright job of setting a proper tone for the scenes. The story falls short and is too predictable. Which of these medias is this a review for?
Who's guessing
Discuss
first?
amongst
They
yourselves.
said colorful, so it's not G-Savior.
Oh, this one's for Steven and Brian.
Okay, we are taking turns. Okay.
For raise. Yes. You can steal if they get it wrong.
Okay, but I do agree. I think that the colorful strikes G-Saviour and Berserk. I definitely think this is between Handshakers and X-Arm.
I've only heard of X-Arm, but only by its poor reputation. I can't really conjure up an image of its aesthetics.
Yeah, I can't either.
It's gross.
It's gross. I think that this was this review was too nice for this to be about something that's rated 1.7. So my opinion is that we should say Handshakers.
Go with that.
Go with Handshakers?
Yeah.
Yes. Lock and loaded.
That is correct. Yes. That is a review for Handshakers by Sek from Jotaku.
God, it looks so bad.
Is that real? That's not.
This one hurts, y'all.
This is a head shaker for me.
Zing. Oh.
Here's I don't have to show you Berserk. You all know what Berserk 2016 looks like. X-Arm it's something that I watched.
Well, it has a girl with a gun, so I'm not shocked.
I like this image a lot more than the other image, I will say that.
So that's y'all guys getting a point. Sorry, I have to remember my points. So this one goes to Piss Squad.
No.
I still fail to see
please.
Piss Saviors, save me from the piss. I still fail to see why having a staff experienced in live action versus CGI or animation or anything else would be a reasonable excuse for the script. Blame bad translation all you want, likely fictional defender of this media, but those words had to come from somewhere. What is this a review for?
Wait, so what kind of a staff experienced in live action, but I guess it's not actually live action. It's not G-Saviour.
Yeah, it takes G-Saviour out. Also, I was going to say, we know G-Saviour doesn't have subtitles or anything.
Yeah.
So they couldn't have been watching it in Japanese and reading the subtitles for a translation issue.
So I don't know. It sounds like the level of frustration sounds X-Arm to me, but maybe it could also be frustration with Berserk.
I think it's probably X-Arm because I feel like there's enough Berserk material that translation wouldn't necessarily be as much of an issue. Whereas I've never heard of X-Arm before, and so I feel like...
Yeah, this is the problem. Is I'm not familiar enough with the Berserk. I know more about the problems with Berserk video game adaptations than I do actual other media adaptations of Berserk. So that is as always, PMC has spent too much time on the video games and not enough on the actual animated or live action media. So
You know what? My suggestion for our team name was going to be related to gamers because, like, you've got all this experience, and I'm replaying Sable, so like clearly we're both equally qualified gamers.
that's right.
But no, I think I'll agree with you. I think it's X.
Let's go X-Arm.
That is correct. This is a review for X-Arm from Colin from Idols and Realities. Congratulations, Piss Squad.
God,
that image from Berserk.
that Berserk show really harmed me. I was.
You ever seen Ruby? Worse. Worse than season 1 of Ruby. That's how bad.
This is something else. All right.
All right, back to Race Squad. The CGI was, in my opinion, horrible. The actual 3D models were horrible and looked nothing like the actually decent line art. The animation was just terrible. Really, didn't even flow. Even the particle effects were bad. Just bad all around. And in my opinion, a game of Quake 3, no, Quake 2 was better looking, if not the original Quake.
Damn.
This is how people talked about G-Saviour in the past, and really kind of still do.
Well, it's
Yeah.
Quake.
Yeah, I feel like Berserk doesn't have enough particle effects to talk about. And this really feels like this really feels like me 50 minutes into G-Saviour, but not me after G-Saviour is over.
The line art kind of gives it away too, because I feel like they're referring to the mechanical designs of Okawara and Friends.
Yeah. Should we say G-Saviour?
G-Saviour it is.
That is correct.
Yes,
This is a review
we're
from
killing
Anon
it.
Kaizi on mechatalk.net, a dead website. All right, on to the next one. Peace Saviors. First, the source material is very deep and hard to mess up. Second, the storyline works as a good follow-up to the old anime. Third, and most importantly, the animation just sucks, and you'll have to get over it to enjoy it.
That feels pretty
It's
dead.
gotta be Berserk.
Yeah, old anime,
Yeah.
follow up to other material. Yeah, that's Berserk.
Yeah.
That is correct. This is a review for Berserk from IMDb. I'm not going to try and read that guy's name. All right, back to Wraith. The CGI is, for the most part, flat, lacking lots of details and shadows. When it's not CGI, the traditional is reminiscent of a Marvel movie, inferior and cheap looking. I'm not sure why both styles are even present.
It could be G-Saviour again.
That could be G-Saviour again, because like, why you wouldn't talk about a bad anime like it was a Marvel movie? I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Locking in?
My
Yeah, I
gut
think
says
so.
G-Saviour.
That is incorrect.
Oh shit.
This is not a G-Saviour review. Do you guys need me to reread that, or do you want to take a crack at it as is?
I think we could take a
Okay, what are you thinking, Nico?
My preliminary thought is I haven't seen any of it, but the X-Arm poster has drawn characters on it. It makes me wonder if X-Arm doesn't have traditionally animated scenes, especially between characters, and then the CG fights are what they're talking about, like
Oh.
especially if they don't like the style maybe of the characters in X-Arm, if it looks more like Marvel cartoons.
Yeah, because right, well, like what era of Marvel are they talking about? Because at that point, you'd probably be comparing it to the old X-Men cartoon or other things of the era. Yeah, no, I think go with that.
So X-Arm.
That is incorrect.
Damn, okay.
This is a review for Berserk 2016.
Oh, there were two different styles in this?
There is some actual drawing in that, unfortunately.
That feels cruel. That feels cruel. You can't make people draw real drawings and then have them up against this. That's mean.
Right? All right, Peace Savior, we're back to you. The writing is bad, the characters are bland, the CG is ugly even by the standards of its time. It looks and feels cheap. Clearly, no one making it cares about the source material. Yes, I do own it on DVD. Why do you ask?
That's G-Saviour. That's got to be G-Saviour.
G-Saviour, yeah.
That is G-Saviour.
Yeah.
That is G-Saviour. That is signed from Zeta from Reddit.
For a second, I thought it might be Handshakers, but I don't believe Handshakers has ever gotten a DVD release. Not because I
It's on a
know
Blu-ray.
anything. Yeah, I was about to say, not because I know anything about Handshakers, but I feel like it's either Blu-ray or this thing has never seen physical media.
It's one of the two. That brings us back to Race Squad. It seems like the makers didn't even try. There's little to no effort put in this thing, and that's perceptible in every frame. If you want to tell a story, you must have a story to tell. It takes so elementary mistakes that I just feel betrayed. It's like watching a mirror that is punching one in the face.
That is a negative review. I'm going to guess. I'm going to see if Brian agrees with me here. I was going to say X-Arm based on its
I was going to say
reputation.
X-Arm too. Yeah, just based on the rating. That is.
That is incorrect.
Brian, we're not good at this.
Switch back over to G-Saviour. What do you guys think?
Thinking it's probably Handshakers, right?
Yeah.
Like, this seems like the kind of angry review that comes from somebody who wanted to jerk off to the characters in this image.
Yeah, they wanted Handshaker, and once again they got Headshaker. Sad to say.
I gave him the old handshaker, if you know what I mean.
dire.
That is correct. That is a review for Handshakers by Kuba Skater on IMDb. People were very mad about this adaptation. That's it. All right. That does bring us back to you guys. G-Saviour again. It's honestly not that bad. A bit slow? Yeah. Cheesy as hell? Absolutely. Confusing and weird? 100%. But it does something different, and honestly, the overall story is pretty solid. Dodgy acting here and there, notwithstanding.
I feel like that's gotta be G-Saviour.
I'm concerned that I wrote this
G-Saviour.
review of G-Saviour, or I've previously read it, so I feel like it's G-Saviour in my heart.
I agree.
I'm pretty sure this is your account on Reddit. Yeah, that was G-Saviour by Circulanta6A on Reddit, who is a G-Saviour stan who posts all the time about G-Saviour.
I love that. No matter how bad the media you consume, no matter how weird something you're exposed to is, there's always one person. It's their life. I love humanity.
Yeah, as someone who streams a lot of very random games on Twitch, that is true. Like, you can stream, just the worst RPG of any time, and someone will come in, and their Twitch username will be a character from that game, and they'll tell you it's their favorite game.
Have you had this happen with Beyond to Beyond?
No, I had it happen. Well, Vandal Hearts is a good game, but like I had someone like the level 1 enemy, like the first stage, the guy you kill at the end of stage 1, that was their Twitch username. And they love streams of Vandal Hearts. Yeah, it just happens.
I love it.
That's great. That's great. All right, back to you, Race Squad. I have a certain fondness for the silly TV sci-fi aesthetic that has been cultivated by MST3K for many years. I like pew-pew lasers. I like lots of meaningless flashing lights. I like expert computer technicians who bash a few keys to get everything done. I like random orders shouted in all directions. There's a certain goofy, earnest charm to it. Like the whole cast knows they're in a silly B-level sci-fi flick and you don't care.
Again, I feel like I wrote this, echoing PMC's words earlier. I'm gonna say I've been wrong so much though. Brian, we stumbled so our opponents here could walk. But I want to say G-Saviour again.
I want to say G-Saviour too because that just sounds like a plot summary of G-Saviour.
This is clearly Handshakers. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, that is correct. That is a G-Saviour review by Scamp on the Cart Drive. All right, we're into our final round. Some might call it a bonus round. This one's worth all the marbles. Everything before this didn't count.
Oh.
We're in Gundam. The only thing that matters is the final fight. This one, you have to buzz in. You have to yell your team name to buzz in and give an answer on this.
Okay.
I will now read this review. The work appears to be quite interesting. The art reveals a strong inspiration from Raphael's sweet line. In fact, the figures on the cover are shaded, often showing the character underneath. The perspective is all too present, so much so that the use of CGI for the representation of the characters is noticeable, as opposed to the Leonardian perspective, characterized by a soft, chromatic perspective. The musculature of the characters recalls that of Michelangelo, but contrasts with his gentle movements given the wooden and awkward animation. The writing is clearly inspired by Alfieri's Tragedies, reporting a heroic protagonist with a titanic destiny, both in battles and in the role played, with impossible congratulations. Tasso is another of the great authors revisited by the series, masterfully enveloping the Christian morality of How do you pronounce C-O-N... How do you pronounce this word? I need help from the gang. How do you pronounce, what the fuck is this word?
Concupiscence.
Thank you. Thanks, you so much.
You can credit Homestuck for that.
Masterfully enveloping the Christian morality of concupiscence.
Put
that in the animations, which ironically depict female charms, and through the transversal inclusion of the characters themselves. Finally, there is a modern, almost cyberpunk key to the plot itself. The events unfold their lives in a futuristic and dystopian universe thus taking up Orwell's stories. So, 10 out of 10 for writing a work containing every single periodic element necessary to achieve viewer captivation.
Peace Saviors. PMC, I think this is X-Arm.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, X-Arm.
That is correct. This is a review of X-Arm.
I saw the Da Vinci in this piece that you posted.
That review was insane. Can you paste the whole review in the chat, please?
Where did this come from?
This is from IMDb, from Plonglod. I read this and I said, yeah, that's what I saw when I saw X-Arm. That's exactly what that was.
This person says shit like how fortuitous, like in everyday conversation.
Fortuitous.
I feel like I've interacted with, as an undergrad, I feel like this is a fellow undergrad in my one of my literature classes.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is somebody who shows up to the first day of a 200 level class and is like, I should be in a 400 level class. And this is the statement they make to prove it.
Well, the scores are in, and unfortunately, we have once again been saved by piss.
Yeah!
G-Saviour takes the W for this game. Congratulations.
Better start believing in G-Saviour's you're in one.
Damn.
We need to stop. This has to stop. Whatever we're doing.
Now it needs to stop. But when you make endless horrific statements to me, we make a podcast together.
So rather than a mailbag for this one, first we're gonna watch a clip PMC brought for us of the G-Saviour PS2 game, which we might cover in the future. You want to walk us through this?
So the context of this clip is as I mentioned before, the game has English voice acting. One of the things you can do when you're shopping a speedrun to marathons is you can determine the amount of time the game would take if you do the speedrun but let all the cutscenes play, and all cutscenes run. This has been done a few times, like Pepsi Man, Metal Wolf Chaos. Like those are kind of famous examples of when it's been really popular at events. So I was testing this out. I said, hey, what if I did this for G-Saviour and timed it out? Now the answer is the cutscenes are too long. There's way too much of them. It would be well over 50% cutscenes. So it's too long. However, I also never finished doing this because in the beginning of the final level, this happened to me.
We're going to count it down and then we'll all press play and you'll dub in the audio, Nico. We do a 3, 2, 1, go. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Mobile weapon. Now I remember. Taste the power of me.
Oh, God. The timer just running while you're like, oh.
The fact that you immediately accept that you're cooked is so funny. Oh my God.
Oh, I know exactly what's happened. This isn't even the first time this kind of shit's happened to me. Like I've had this shit happen to me in other video games, but like nothing quite exquisite as this, as like ending on a syllable and just extending it into infinity. Yeah, and I think you also get a taste of the voice acting in there, right? Like it's all acting like that. The character who's speaking there is like the evil computer copy of like a former pilot that we used to fly with. So that's like a little bit of the flavor of the robot mobile suits I was talking about before. It's pretty fun.
That's
great.
That's
this is beautiful. This is beautiful. That'll link to this video. It will be pasted on the web zone for those who want to watch me. But I also want to take this time, rather than a letter, to talk to you two about Giant Robot FM. We do have some listeners that probably haven't heard you guys. Could you kind of give them a pitch about what you guys are all about, what you guys are creating? Because you're doing more than just podcasting over there.
Yeah, this is for my mom.
Yeah, so this is specifically for Nico's mom.
Yeah, Mrs. Hero still is in the dark as to what I do in my off hours.
Nico's a pervert who tells their mother what they're doing in their fucking post. And
PMC, usually the promotion person, you can rattle this off.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a few elements to what we're doing. We do, sort of periodic coverage on like small mecha things. So, of course, the G-Saviour film was perfect for that. We just finished Super Art World Wars OG, the animation. We tend to do a lot of like just short little bursts here and there for our main feed stuff, movies, OVAs. We try to bounce between things that are, pretty popular and less popular. G-Saviour Super Robot War is kind of on the less popular side, but we've done things like Macross Plus was the first thing that we did. And the approach we take is that we try to do, at least one episode that is an overview on the history. Sometimes two. Sometimes we'll do an episode that covers maybe one of the key creative personnel. So like with The Origin, we talked a lot about Yaz. With Robot Jocks, we talked a lot about Stuart Gordon. So like, sometimes one or two episodes, we do that deep dive, and then we'll do kind of more standard rewatch discussion episodes after that. And as I said, we just kind of work through various things. We just finished some Super Robot Wars stuff. We're going to be moving to some Zone of the Ender stuff next. Beyond that, another movie.
But tell me about some of the stuff you do on the side. Specifically, I want you to talk about Moonrace Wireless, which I'm currently obsessed with.
Love to hear that.
Yeah, a while back, we had started up a bonus podcast series off the back of Witch from Mercury. And of course, we had a lot of fun doing that week to week. But then once Witch from Mercury either had taken its season break or otherwise the series concluded, we were like, damn, we need to do something like that. Maybe not at that same rate. And we settled on Turn A Gundam, which is something that neither me nor Steven had seen previously. And we've been taking it, 2 episodes a month. So a very, very slow pace. But, really digging into it. And, there's a lot to dig into. It's a pretty interesting work on a lot of levels. And there's a lot of people who are ready to talk about it at length with us. As I think I mentioned earlier, Fees is someone that we've had join, but we've had a lot of our usual friends and then also some other folks hop on with us. And we are currently like 30 episodes into that. To complete the plug, 4 of the first 4 episodes are on the main feed, so you can just check those out. You don't have to subscribe to our Patreon or anything. And if you like it, $5 gets you 25 more episodes.
Worth it. I just really want to shout it out because it was wild to me that you guys had not seen Turn A at all, because I love Turn A Gundam, and hearing you experience it as it's like you're not going ahead of it, you're watching it and then recording, and it's really cool to see you guys experience what I think is one of the best Gundams.
Hell yeah.
Real fun. Yeah, no, that's yeah. So I would say like the main feed stuff, Turn A Gundam, and then of course the other part, which I think Alice has mentioned a few times, is that we've started doing zines. We did a zine on the first season of the Big O, and just shipped the zine on Macross Plus. And what those zines are primarily is taking the history research that really Steven has done and putting those into a format where they're, it's in a fixed medium, it's on the page. We hired 2 artists that we work with, Ethan Hawker and Belvion, commissioned them to do some art. And then we also, include citations and things like that we aren't necessarily, because lots of times we do these episodes and then something comes up. It's like, a new translation, a new interview got translated, stuff like that. And so the zines are sort of a way for us to, kind of like fully publish the work to kind of be out there. Like, yeah, this is what we used. These are some corrections that we have to issue from our podcast, and then just sort of adding in, some other bells and whistles, making it a little, personal and fun. So it's been, it has been very enjoyable so far to see it come to fruition. And also just kind of have it. Not that podcasts aren't good, of course. Podcasts are excellent. You should listen to podcasts, but having some mementos of fan culture.
Maybe not this one.
I think G-Saviour, look, the legend of G-Saviour podcasting has just begun.
No, I am grateful for your work on the Macross Plus zine, if only because I really hope it causes like a resurgence in interest, a renaissance, and Pop-Up Parade prints a fucking Sharon Apple figure, because I cannot believe there are not there's one little Nindoroid, but there are no Sharon Apple figures. I've never wanted to be an anime figure person, but now I'm driven. I'm broken inside because I don't have one.
And yes, the work you're doing for preservation of media and these stories, because we are going through an era when we're losing a lot of that early internet, which is where a lot of this lives. And I think it's great that the zine is a physical media. I think a lot of us are worried about media being lost through time. And so the preservation efforts are great. Steven, you've got to have something. You've got to have some pitch about this. I'm putting it on you. I know you always throw to PMC, because PMC's got it down clock, but I want to hear it from you.
All right, so these are exhaustively researched. So a typical history episode usually takes the reason why main feed coverage takes a month or 2 month hiatus is because we wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to continue. It's just too much work to do the history episodes. In the past, when we were really slinging podcasts, the history episodes were shorter, but we would like go from like, let's finish Gundam Wing right into Code Geass, let's say, and I'd be like shooting out like a 3,000 word document in a week. Obviously, I need more time to do that, but I'm really not miffed, but the video game curation sphere is really populated. There's a lot of energy behind that. There are like books being published monthly talking about the history of video games, the history of fandom, and that important curation and academic work is being done, but not in the anime space because really the money is just not there. It's being done to a limited degree. There's like a handful of really great websites, Anime News Network, Anime Feminist, Zimmerit are like the big ones I usually point to. And the work they're doing is excellent, but they're not really, often the work is not like focusing on the production of a single show. So that's what I'm really working through and making sure I cite my sources and making sure I try to fashion a narrative, not only to engage the reader, but to present the full breadth of a history of a show. And also, this is a great opportunity to correct myself. PMC, I'm glad you mentioned that because while we were recording this, I discovered someone did track down Graham Campbell. In the last week, someone published a 1-hour interview with Graham Campbell. This video only has 27 views. I can't vouch for these people, but Gundam Space Engineers interviewed him. I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to be worried, and as I do, because there's like 4 interviews, like 4 primary sources I worked from for the G-Saviour history episode. I hope this doesn't contradict too much of what I already wrote.
Well, now you know that you can get him on to talk.
That's true.
Excited for that.
And also, so the goal is to do 4 zines per year. I'm a little behind on that. We just shipped the Macross Plus zine. Zine number 3 is going to be Armored Core, the PlayStation trilogy, covered in exhaustive depth. We're going to talk about the founding of FromSoft. That section's almost done and written. Then we're going to do each game. PMC is going to do quite a bit of writing because he's going to do a little overview of each game. And we're going to have a mini stream talking about that sometime in the next 2 weeks or so. I still got to talk to PMC about it.
I'm so excited for that. We talked about it on our coverage of Armored Core, the first game on PS1, but that was literally the first video game I ever played with my mother.
The origin story of FromSoft's pretty gnarly. More of it's coming to light in recent months, but it's interesting.
That's a nice way to phrase it. And then I'm going to put you on the spot as one of your patrons who has now voted. Have you decided your December mecha movie?
It is. I'm actually, so when I put it, the poll ends on the 15th.
I just voted and it's tied currently.
Okay, I was actually, I was really surprised. I thought it was a for sure thing. Promare was by a country mile was going to be Endless Waltz. I knew it'd always be between those two. I'm happy to cover both. Promare is going to be a little more work, so I would not be opposed if Endless Waltz wins. And I really like the Christmas, the Christmas spirit behind Endless Waltz.
Yeah, I think we can probably say it now, guys, that's what we're doing for Christmas this year is we're going to sit around and have a coup with a small child fascist.
It's so
I'm
fun.
So excited to talk about this. This is totally tangential to the show, but the Metal Year did get me reading a lot more history of different international incidences and plays that happened during the 20th century. I read The Jakarta Method by Vincent Blevins, and I'm so excited to talk about coups, y'all. I feel a lot more qualified.
There's a lot of them in Gundam. Well, guys, thank you so much for telling us about it. What few listeners we have that aren't already listening should really go check you guys out. I really want to... A really cool group of people guested on one of your Robot Jocks episodes. I think it was the second history episode. They were pretty cool. Really liked them. And then I guess OSG showed up. Whatever. Who cares about them? But thank you guys so much for coming. Now, we are wrapping up this episode of On the Shoulders of Giants where we discussed G-Saviour. Any final thoughts? Anything we didn't get out, y'all?
We need more mechs in Vancouver.
Yeah, more mecha TV shows and movies filmed in Vancouver, please. Not make it. It's Star Trek is often filmed in Vancouver, or maybe it's Toronto. Maybe I'm confusing them, but more mechs in Canada, please.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Maple syrup powered mecha. The Timmy Hose mecha. Oh, you know what G Gundam needed? Canada Gundam.
It had Canada Gundam.
It has. It's a lumberjack guy.
Yeah.
That was Canada?
Yeah.
He didn't apologize once.
God. I'm sorry to all of our Canadian listeners.
In Canada, the funnels are called Timbits.
Oh, dear.
Pilots, remember you can reach out for advice from the team at our email, questions@osgpod.com, and non-pilots can send general questions of feedback at the same address. You can also catch up with us on social media, links in the description for updates and more. Make sure to check back in 2 weeks when we'll be discussing Tankhead. Until then, goodbye. I love you.
Goodbye. I love you.
No kiss for you.